The following event is not an officially licensed Bill and Ted event and is not part of the licensed Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. This event may contain adult subjects or content that's not appropriate for children. Parental discretion is advised. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Reunion! We, along with Attractions Magazine, want you to enjoy the show, so please take note of the following. This show contains cast and crew members. We will have conversations with the people that help turn an alternative to the haunted house queue lines of a seasonal theme park event into a widely loved cult classic embedded in a global phenomenon. This show contains history. Join us as we take our time-traveling computer screens through 26 years of mischief and mayhem. The law of averages dictates that a show that runs for 26 years is bound to collect at least a few stories that can be told without causing offense to the copyright holder or to the licensee. Maybe. This show contains charity. In conjunction with GOPAR, the Greater Orlando Performing Arts Relief, we will be helping to raise money for people in the Central Florida performing arts and theme park entertainment sectors that have been impacted by the pandemic. If you would like to contribute, please visit the website of St. Luke's Orlando at tinyurl.com/givegopar. In the notes section, be sure to enter "We Party On" to make your donation on behalf of all the cast and crew members involved in Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure over the years. And now, sit back, enjoy the show, and party on, dudes! At this time, please welcome your moderator for tonight's event, Mr. J. Becker!
Well, thanks. Hi, everybody. We are so excited. It's going to be a big night, lots to do. And so I'm going to quickly, I want to turn back to Scotty. Scotty, you did this for a long time, didn't you? You've been working with Bill and Ted's for a long time.
Yes, I did the first show in 1992, and I did a total of 15 Bill and Ted's over the years. The announcements I did at that time, we needed to have some kind of disclaimer, and since I was on the audio board and happened to have the microphone there, I offered to go ahead and do the disclaimer announcements, and they were all for it. And then, just seeing the energy of the crowd just kind of really got into it, and it just kind of took off from there.
That's awesome. And you're still doing audio work out there, or?
I'm still doing show control work out there, yes, and not so much audio anymore because I'm kind of working on the mechanical and effects end of it as well. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, folks, I am Jay Becker, and I have been here in Orlando for the last 30 or so years doing theater, doing theme parks. I was a Ghostbuster back in the day. I was a Louis Tully, CPA, and Junior Assistant Vice President of Finance for Ghostbusters Incorporated. That was my first job at Universal. I'm currently there working in the Wizarding World, and I even worked on Halloween Horror Nights several times, worked on a show called The Price is Fright with Jason Surrell, who you're going to meet momentarily, and actually a few years ago worked on the Virtual House, they had the special Virtual House, and I worked on that as an actor there. Now, here's the funny thing about Bill and Ted's is, as I said, I've been around the community for quite a long time, done a lot of work. Some considered me having some talent. But I've never been cast in Bill and Ted. I've never done a Bill and Ted show. I've never I've been able to do that. So I'm coming here as a fan like you, and I'm going to ask the questions I'm hoping that you want to hear some of the stories you want to hear. So because like you, I just want to have fun with everybody. So let's just get straight to it. I want to bring the founder of the feast, as it were, the man whose idea this was his brainchild. So without further ado, I would like to introduce you to my co-host for the evening and a man who has written and directed Bill and Ted's for many years, Mr. Jason Surrell. Look at that.
Hey, how are you, my friend? I love the shirt.
Thanks. Oh yeah, everyone.
That is officially licensed apparel. That was actually, yeah, it is funny though, because like we're talking about like almost 30 years of the show, and we joke that you're like the only local Orlando actor who has never appeared in Bill and Ted.
Yeah,
But you know, you got Prices Right. You got Prices Right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But I've never been in Bill and Ted. You know, because Price is Right, I think went 2 or 3 years, and Bill and Ted did what, 26? Was it 26?
You know,
26, and you know, I mean, there was never a spot for me because you know, you didn't need any. You know, okay, that's fine.
Well, I'm looking at you now. I'm like, I don't know why we didn't use you as the Riddler, but
there you go.
Water under the bridge. Am I right?
So Jason, why don't we kind of dive right in? We got a lot of information to cover, and we've got lots to do. So let's just talk about. So Bill and Ted did not start until the second year, but let's talk a little bit about that first year of Halloween Horror Nights, which was 1991, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Yeah, it was called Fright Nights that year. That was the year I moved down here, and I attended as a guest. And even that first year, Halloween Horror Nights was incredible. But you don't have to take that from me, because our first guest tonight is the Queen of Halloween, the co-creator of Halloween Horror Nights in general, and the creator of Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure. It's really a privilege to have her on tonight. And I would just like to preface it by saying she is one of 3 people without whom I wouldn't have a career. So it's a debt that I can never repay. And she literally gave me the life and career that I have now. And I'm really grateful for that. And over the years, I don't know that she's always gotten the attention and the credit that she deserves, because then as now, Halloween Horror Nights is a juggernaut. You know, it's the premier Halloween event in the country, in the world, at Universal Studios Florida. And we have this fine lady to thank for it. So why don't we bring her out and we can ask her about the origins of Orlando's favorite holiday event. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. I blew the intro.
Everyone, this is Julie Zimmerman, and so she's going to be coming talking to us about the origins of Halloween Horror Nights, how we went from 1991, what was called, what'd you say, Fright Nights? Is that correct, Jason?
Yeah, well, yeah, ask Julie.
Julie, it was Fright Nights, correct?
It was Fright Nights. It's the brainchild of the amazing Jay Stein. And, you know, Universal opened very poorly, and they were looking for a way to get local people back into the theme park, because they knew they needed to bring somebody back in to get some revenue. And Jay had always wanted to do a horror event in this theme park. They had one in Hollywood that didn't go so well, so they decided they were going to do Fright Nights. And it was like a 3-day event that was put together with gum and rats and rat ladies and a lot of sweat. And that's how this whole started.
And then how did you come on board?
I was the project manager. I was with, which was then called P&D, not Universal Creative. I was with them, and they were kind of walking around not knowing how to get A to B. And I knew how to do that. And I also knew how to talk to the city, and I knew how to do it so they could not get anybody killed, basically, is why I think they hired me. So I worked with tech services and all the different departments to make Fright Nights come about. So we were all in a trailer. The rats were in the trailer with us. We had real rats for the show, and we have rats that were living at Universal at the time. And we were all huddled in there trying to put together this event that we did a lot of praying. We drank a hell of a lot of beer. And we're still drinking the beer.
So Fright Nights was successful, obviously. Successful enough that they decided to bring it back the following year, correct? And that's when, so where did Bill and Ted, where did the idea of a Bill and Ted show come from?
They did. But they again, it's all about.
We're getting a little lag right from Julie right now. Let's see if we'll give that a second to clear right up.
They asked me, I was like the lone, I don't know what, I was in a trailer by myself, you know, on a car for Fright Nights 2. What would you do? And I said, well, I'll write it up.
It looks like there's a little bit of a technical hiccup there.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see it. Oh, I look scary.
No, you don't. You look lovely. You look lovely. So we're going to just take you back just a little bit. You were saying that you were trying to make Fright Nights 2 a little, and that's where Bill and Ted came from, the Bill and Ted show.
I'm in.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's
Yeah,
going
they
on.
said, what would you do? And so I wrote down a whole thing for another Halloween event, and I had seen Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, the movie, quite a few times, and so I put in a show. I put in this show.
Tell you what, we're going to bring in.
Thinking.
We're going to bring in Adrian LePeltier to help out this up.
Ada, how are you?
Oh, not so loud, Jason. I'm fine. Thank you. Who's talking? Is that Julie talking? Because her mouth is absolutely still. Is she talking out of her ass?
And
so let me introduce everyone. So Jason talks about paying it forward, like how Julie gave him his career. Well, it's these two people right here, Jason Surrell and Adrian LePeltier. Adrian hired me at Universal, and then Jason gave me both of them gave me opportunities, and I swear I would not have a career in this town if it weren't for the two of them. So I just want to thank you guys right out here. So Adrian, tell us, how did you come to be involved with Bill and Ted the first year?
Well, the first year was my first Halloween, and I was presented this script, which virtually was like the Wild West show, except that it had Bill and Ted and Doc Brown coming into it. So that was fine. John Zimmerman came and did the stunts. It was basically the stunts from the Wild West show with a few new added fights. And then Skip Sherman at the end said to me, you know, wouldn't it be good if we could end this on a musical number? If we brought in, you know, people, we've got like the Blues Brothers, we could bring them in. Then we've got this girl over here. She can do, mime to some songs. Wouldn't you think it'd be good? I said, yeah, that'll work. It'll lift it up. It'll be a good ending. And so that's how that musical sequence came to be born in Bill and Ted's in the Future. Sure. From that one, oh, maybe we should try it. And we did, and it succeeded. It was a wonderful success. I remember James Keaton having to learn to drive a stick shift. And he was petrified because he was only used to driving, automatics. And he was terrified about this damn thing, but he did beautifully. He really did wonderfully well.
So it looks like Julie's back.
Yeah.
How are you? Have we got a little better connection over there, Julie? And I will take that as a no right there. We're going to take that as a no. So Adrian,
yes.
That's my memory of it too, is that the first one had a lot more connection with the Wild West show that was sort of the daytime offering for the guests.
Yeah, and there was nothing to do with the political scene, the movie scene. There was none of that until Jason Surrell started submitting fucking scripts. Then it became a legal nightmare. Because it wasn't parody that he was doing, according to legal. Then it became a point where we wrote the Bill and Ted script and it had to go first to legal. And they had to look it over. And it would come back virtually scriptless. Because everything was wrong. No, it's not, it can't do this, can't say this.
By the way, if you're keeping a track, if your cuss jar is open, I guarantee it will be full by the time Adrian is done. Just keeping track. If you're keeping track back at home, you've got.
I try not to, but I can't promise. So
I know, darling.
Okay.
So let's talk about casting. So you had the script. You had to have Bill and Ted. Obviously, we're going to use some of the actors from the Wild West show.
Well, I only did two. Bill and Teds, the first and the second.
Right. But you had to cast some actors. So how did you come across some names that became synonymous with with Halloween and with Bill and Ted? So how did you come?
A lot of it was like lookalikes.
Uh-huh.
If they suited the part, and they fit the part, they would get the job.
Great.
So that's how it was. It was a simple thing. It wasn't very difficult.
So why don't we? Is it okay if we open it up a little bit and bring in some of those cast members?
Sure.
Excellent. So I'd like to introduce to you our very first Bill and our very first Ted. Let's bring in John Gallagher and, of course, James Keaton.
Hello.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
They are.
Correction, I was not the first Ted. I was Doc Brown.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
He was Doc Brown. Yep.
Terrified of the stick shift. Just really quickly to cover some of the ground. I think that Julie was going to cover. She had mentioned seeing the movie and being inspired by that. So for more recent fans of the show who may not be as familiar, the original film came out in the spring of '89 and was kind of a sleeper hit, and it was kind of the first of what would come to be called the stoner comedies, even though Bill and Ted weren't stoners at all per se. And then the sequel came out in '91, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. So the property was still very fresh when the show premiered at Universal in the fall of '92.
Yeah. That's crazy to think that, it was still a fresh property back then.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing I think about the show at the park was the fact that up until 2 months ago, when the third one came out, the show really over time established its own relevancy. So it almost got to the point where it didn't matter if they were in a new film or not. The audience knew and loved them so much, and then it got to the point where the audience knew and loved them from our show. So we didn't have to depend on a film, and then we could infuse new life every year, from the world of pop culture and politics and whatnot. But the boys always maintain their own relevancy, and I think that's a testament to the strength of the actors that we have here in town, that have populated the event.
I mean, seriously, this show was the torchbearer for the Bill and Ted franchise in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, James, John, why don't you tell us a little bit about, and actually, I'm going to bring in one more person too. Let's bring in Chris Leps, who I believe was our first show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey,
Chris.
Chris, clearly, as you can see, Chris.
You joined in '93.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, 93. See,
Yeah.
this is where Keaton's going to be invaluable to keep telling me, no, Jay, you're wrong.
Can
You're
you
wrong.
guys hear me? Other than getting all the names and dates wrong, you're doing a hell of a job. And
So let me.
how
if you guys can-
Actually, just real quick.
now than when I came out of the womb.
Yeah, I was going to say if you guys can hear me real quick. So the first year we had 2 Bills and 2 Teds. So there was myself as Bill, which funny story, I actually auditioned for Ted, but God bless Adrian, he realized that was a better fit for Bill than for Ted. And my Ted was a gentleman by the name of Robert Ramos.
Yep.
And then the other 2 guys who I'm not going to lie, we joked they were Bill and Ted. Were 2 gentlemen by the name of Toby Miller, who did Ted, and Joel Bunton was the other Bill. And we split the shows. James was Doc Brown.
I was Doc Brown.
And we had 4 shows a night, and we would each do 2. And then we would switch off, and for one night, we actually had to do double duty in a haunted house, and then thank the maker. Somebody realized that, hey, maybe this show is physically draining enough that we shouldn't make them go work in a haunted house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
If you guys know HHN, you remember the Dungeon of Terror?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was right next door.
Yeah, the first 2 nights, Bill and Ted had to go torment the birdcage lady when they weren't doing their two shows.
I remember that now. Yeah.
So yeah, it was crazy and terrifying because I'd never done stunts before in my life, and I did an 18-foot slide for life. So
all 4 of you,
that. Yep.
even Joel, but Joel never did stunts either. So it was all new.
Adrian, what was that like for you? Because if you think about the Bill and Ted films and you think about Adrian LePeltier, it doesn't really seem like the type of film you would rush to the theater to see. So how did you approach that material and those characters and working with the actors?
Well, I remember seeing the film, and I didn't think I was going to like it, but I loved it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that gave me the impetus to see what we could do with it. And John Zimmerman was fun. Wasn't he good to work with, John Zimmerman? He was great.
Excellent.
I mean, and he had everything together. I mean, he really was a good person for that.
Well, I always lucked out. I didn't have to do any stunts, so I was.
No, you were lucky there. Yeah. But you
I
had
never
to drive
gave me
the
anything to drive.
DeLorean.
I would already admit, like, I can't do that. They're like, all right, just write Ted stands here, and that's fine. Doc Brown, I had to do the stick. My thing was the car. I was stressed out.
You were terrified with that.
Yeah. Well, because the barn doors that opened, I was supposed to drive out. They weren't exactly like done really well, and if one side opened and the other one didn't, I would crash that DeLorean, which was used in the movie in Back to the Future 2. I would end up crashing that DeLorean into a door, a giant wooden door, and crash the DeLorean. So I was always nervous, and you'd smoke the hell out of the room, and I'd be trying to find to see, like, is there light breaking through, and can I hit the accelerator now? Because I got it into first gear, which is the only gear I know how to get it into. Because even in the show, you guys had the cowboy reverse the car, because you're like, James isn't going to be able to reverse the car, so randomly the cowboy got into the DeLorean and was driving the car. That made sense. But because I wasn't going to do it, and
get it out.
But that was the nerve-wracking thing. Was always like, is that barn door going to open? And if it didn't open, I had to like turn off the car and then run out through the smoke and then do our thing. So I was always stressed. So that was my stress. But John had the stress of doing the stunts.
Yeah.
Well, no, but James, I feel your pain because I can't remember if it was the second year or if it was. I actually had to drive the car too.
Exactly, so you guys got the car.
Funny piece of
Chris got the car.
We were going to try and do that gag with a horse.
Yes.
With Bill and Ted riding horseback.
Yeah.
And then someone realized, hey, maybe the big explosion is not a good idea to have happen while riding a horse.
Because I have footage of me and Chris. Like, I have footage of me and Chris on the horse. Like, we were trying the horse back. Yeah. Knucklehead. Knucklehead. I think it was
Knucklehead.
Knucklehead.
I'll say this show opened some doors for me because from doing this show, I did get cast as a swing Felix in the Wild Wild West stunt show. So it was a good door opener.
And Chris, it's interesting because it's something that we experienced every year was sort of that mixture between actors and the stunt performers. And Chris, you were not only a Bill, but you were a legit stuntman, because Chris and I worked together previously at what was then Disney MGM Studios as Ninja Turtles. And what I always thought was hysterical is Chris is a master martial artist, and I'm an idiot. It
was the great equalizer. Well, first of all, it's so great to see all of your faces. I miss you guys so much. And it's funny that John mentioned that because it was the reverse for me, because I had been hired as Felix earlier that year. I was a part-time Felix. And of course, getting a full-time contract was the goal. And so I saw the casting call for this Bill and Ted show. I had no idea what I was getting involved in. I talked to a few people around Universal and said, oh, it's the best thing in Halloween Horror Nights. You got to audition for it. And so I auditioned, and Adrian knew me from my Felix audition. And he said, this is a great opportunity because, you're just going to get that much more exposure. You show management that you're excited, you're interested. And so I got cast, and I'm so grateful to you, Adrian, for that. And I was so fortunate because the show was the same in '93, but I had people like James and John and Scott Sarah. They had done it the year before, and I was asking them a million questions like, hey, is this right? Is this how you guys did it last year and whatever? So it was the beginning of such a great chapter and so much fun. And I mean, I think the hardest part of doing the show was containing laughter in throughout the performance, because you were surrounded by so many talented people. James, you had me in stitches you got you just so sharp. I actually thought, John, you actually looked a lot more like Bill than I did. And so I feel like but everyone was so warm and welcoming, and it just evolved from there and just became this amazing phenomenon. So it was an absolute blast.
Well, as far as that making you laugh or whatever, a lot of the script, we did have a script, but because there were so many stunts and you had to kind of eat up some time for something to reset or somebody needed to do something, you had to make up time. There was a lot of improv involved in those early days.
So the script in the early days was not much of a script. There really wasn't much of a script to the early days.
Yeah,
it's only when you started doing that nonsense of yours, Jason.
So speaking of nonsense, we're going to segue. So at this point where the show started to expand, and by '94, they started introducing some more pop culture elements. And so in interest of that, we're going to bring in Tom Lerero, as well as there's talk about stunts. Let's bring in John Zimmerman as well to join this group of people.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tom. Hello, John.
Hey, John.
What's up?
Hey guys.
So Tom was Jason Voorhees, correct?
I played the first two Bill and Ted.
Yes, Jason. Yep.
Who was Jason before I was there?
Yeah, well, I did Bill and Ted from 92 through 2005.
Yeah.
And it's the greatest memories I ever had at Universal. And it was so great because the writers and directors would think up this stuff and it would challenge us. We flew Batman from the sound booth across to the Wild West roof. We descended people all the time. Great fight scenes. Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. I love to do Bill and Ted.
And I mean, John is an industry legend, not just with stunts, but a longtime circus performer. And then he was, I would say, the focus of the stunt community here in Central Florida. And to me, one of the ultimate testaments of that, John, are the sheer number of people that worked with you that went on to amazing careers in the film industry. I mean, Chris is a perfect example. He was the stunt double for Johnny Depp and has been in, well, Chris, you can do your resume better than I can, but I mean, so many
sorority boys. Oh my God, sorority boys is freaking genius.
James and I didn't call each other tonight, I promise.
Oh yeah, there we go. The Mando, we got the Mando thing going.
Well, thank you for the accolade.
I'm wearing my bounty hunter shirt. Are you wearing your bounty hunter hat? Okay, good.
I'd already heard of John through the
Yeah, John.
So I've got a story about Adrian.
Don't we all, John?
Oh no! Did he touch you? What happened?
You may want to ask the children.
So one of the actors, after Adrian had gone through a scene, one of the actors said, "You know, I've got an idea and it might work out better." And Adrian said, "Listen, just a minute." He said, "If you want to direct," he said, you go out to," and he said this in his accent. It was so great. He said, "You go out to I-4 and Kirkman and direct traffic." It was hilarious.
I tell that story all the time.
James, you gotta do the voice. Adrian will appreciate it because
if you want to direct, then go outside and go direct fucking traffic. I'm the director here. And I remember it was at the well. It was at the well gag. It was the well gag. And we were trying to figure out how to block that well gag. And everyone was throwing suggestions, and Adrian was like, "Enough. If you want to direct, go direct traffic."
Guys, hang on a second. Hang on. I got a phone call.
He's doing a bit.
Hello? It's Bill and Ted. It's Bill and Ted. What are you talking about? No. This is 2008. Obama and Biden are running against McCain and Palin. No. That guy, he has a show called The Apprentice. What are you talking about? What COVID? What do you mean COVID? What do you keep saying COVID for? You want me to come in 2020?
I have.
Oh my God!
Thank you, John.
That was a deleted scene from 2008.
Okay, that's the only acting I've ever done in my life.
It was.
Thank you. It was fun. Believable.
Well done.
John,
Hey, John. At least you didn't hold up the phone. Do a phone like this. Like, hello. What is that? At least you had a prop.
That's the actual prop from Bill and Ted. That telephone.
Oh,
no way.
Yeah. Here, you want to see it again?
Let's talk to Tommy for a second. Tommy, when did you join Bill and Ted?
Oh, I did the first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second, and Adrian's right on the money about the script. It was Wild West. and I played Jason. And first year I had an axe handle, and the second year I had a chainsaw. And I think it was pretty much Ma Hopper's part that I was playing. But it was me and there was two bad guys. And then we added one the second year. We added Freddie.
Right. That's right.
No.
And,
we had razor fingers. We didn't have the
right.
That's it. Thank you. Yes, the razor fingers.
So it was Scott. Scott was a Terminator both year. Well, every year.
Yeah, Terminator.
He was the second year.
What was his name? No, it wasn't Terminator then, because that was before we did Terminator. It was Chainsaw Maniac, Razor Fingers, and God, right. Adrian, do you remember what we
Robot Assassin.
I can't remember.
Robot Assassin.
Robot Assassin.
I do remember that Tom Marrero got to torment me both of those years.
Yeah.
John Zimmerman, what was it like, just
I'll
staying?
send you an apology later, John.
It made me stronger, Tom. Made me stronger.
Staying on that subject though of stunt actors, what was it like for you as the stunt coordinator when people who really weren't necessarily doing stunts for a living every day, when they were called upon to do some of the stunts in the show, what was it like to try to bring them up to where they needed to be, in order to do a high fall or a slide for life or a rappel?
Well, actually,
And you have to understand that the amount of time given to us in those days was very limited.
Yes.
We were lucky to have 2 weeks.
I can remember some people that really didn't seem like they could accomplish it or do it. And eventually they did. They really did, because they were so into the show. It really was a cult following. And they were so into it. We would practice with them as much as we could, and they would pull it off. I think the 2 funniest shows ever were the one with Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton.
Oh, God, yes. I remember that one. The trouble we had with that, with legal.
And then the football guy, Simpson.
Yeah.
Remember with the Bronco and everything.
Oh my God, there it is.
Oh, yeah, sure.
O.J. Simpson.
Yeah, that was from '94, and that was when I started writing.
Yep.
Because there we go. Part of the cast of '94, and that was really one of the first big things that I was able to do in my career. I had done some writing and some enhancements in entertainment at Walt Disney World. And one of our fellow performers, Chris Leps would know as well, a guy named Charles Graham, said, "Hey, I know the lady that does Halloween Horror Nights. I'll introduce you." And that turned out to be Julie Zimmerman. So I went in for a meeting, and I was just a 24-year-old kid with just these little Disney things that I had done. But she took a chance on me. And among the first shows I did, which is on Jay's shirt, is The Price is Right, which was kind of a takeoff on the game show, but featuring juice. And then I'll never forget, I came in for my second or third meeting, and she said, "Okay, let's see what you can do with Bill and Ted." And again, it was already a phenomenon by that point. They had done, as Adrian said, they'd done one show. It was the same show in '92 and '93. And again, as a 24-year-old kid, I was like, oh my gosh, well, you felt like you were being given the keys to the Ferrari. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I remember
DeLorean, the keys to DeLorean. Come on, Surrell. Come on.
It's right there.
Chris Bueller.
It's not weird science.
I'll take shit from people that were actually cast in the show, Becker, but not you.
Jason, I think just what you said, the reason this show was so great is because Adrian, you and Skip and everybody involved gave every person that was trying to put the show together total free reign. They let us do these crazy stunts. Special effects were fantastic. Okay. The jokes, the humor was on the edge for those days in front of the public audience. You guys casted the greatest people. They were like identical twins to every character. That's why the show was so fantastic. Thank you, by the way. It's my greatest memories.
We're going to wrap this segment momentarily, but let me just ask, I'm just going to ask you guys, did you know, like, even that early that this was something special and that was spawning what might become
yes.
I did.
Yes.
It was the best thing.
So let me tell you,
Maybe by three
my fellow Bills and Teds, we felt like rock stars. I mean, just the energy that you got, and that first night, we couldn't believe.
Precisely. It was that first night. We didn't know that we'd get the acceptance that we would get. I didn't think. And I was shocked beyond words at the acceptance.
It's crazy. I know we're running out of times, but I used to do freelance educational tours. And I had school kids from like Wisconsin that would plan their Florida trip around HHN so that they would come see Bill and Ted.
That's right.
And you know, I feel like the grandpa of, I'm so glad we did good in 92 and 93 because there's part of me that says, look at how many Halloween shows never made it past year one.
Oh no,
so,
very true. Very true.
It was great to be part of it.
Actually, tonight tonight's the 22nd. So actually about like 28 years ago, did we do the first show today for employee preview? I remember employee preview night. So we would be doing employee preview night back in '92 on this day.
Yeah. It was for Halloween. Because
we only did it like for 2 nights or 3 nights. The first we opened, but we did employee night probably tonight. And I just remember employee night when we finished the show, it was just like bonker crazy. And I'm talking like even the '92 show before we even got into like the bigger humor and stuff. The people just went crazy because at that time, as far as Orlando entertainment, I know there's a hanging and stuff in Knott's Berry Farm, but as far as Florida, the only entertainment was Disney, which is princesses and dancing and it's great, but they never saw anything like this. They never saw anything that was so, and not only that, but the merging of 2 properties, Bill and Ted and Doc Brown, and we had Razor Fingers, and we had, we already started seeing the beginning. We started seeing the beginnings of like, holy crap, they're merging movies we love all in one single show. It wasn't just.
It was the Annihilator. Terminator was called the Annihilator.
Annihilator. That's right.
So cheers to our opening night tonight. All the first time.
Cheers.
So let's take this as an opportunity as we're moving. Go ahead, Jason.
Just one second. It's going to set up the rest of the evolution. It created such pressure though in '94 because you're like, well, what do we do? And I remember coming in and talking to Julie and Adrian and saying, well, I would turn it into one 25-minute long Saturday Night Live sketch, and we'll bring in all of the pop cultural figures for the year from film, television, politics, newsmakers. So we'll make parody just like SNL, and so it's SNL with stunts and the big musical finale. And so in '94, I talked about that first batch of shows that I pitched. One of them went ahead, The Price is Right, and then another one was called A Shadow in the Night, and it was based on The Shadow that was coming out that year.
I did the pre-show for that. I did the Shadow.
I remember Julie saying, I think we're going to do the Shadow. But what was coming up in the fall was a movie called Time Cop. So I remember we got an early screening of it sometime during the late spring or early summer, and that's where the subtitles started to come in. So '94, we went in with Bill and Ted's Excellent Halloween Adventure, Bill and Ted Meet Time Cop. And we started introducing the yearly characters, and I will never forget the day I walked in. Again, 24-year-old kid, don't know anything. I sat down in front of Julia, I'm like, do you think we could drive out the Bronco and have OJ get out? I don't see why not. Flash forward 25 years, there's any number of reasons why not. But that was, I will never, James mentioned employee preview night. And again, this was my first real experience in the industry. An employee preview night in '94, things like OJ coming out and Tanya Harding and Nancy Kerrigan getting into the cat fight. It literally blew the roof off the Wild West Theater. And I'll never forget afterwards, Adrian and Michael Fine, who was the director of events at the time, Julie, they all came up to me and was like, do you know what this means? And I'm like, no, I'm a 24-year-old idiot. But it was the start of a juggernaut. It was really humbling. And, I owe it all to Adrian and Julie and everyone that was there at the beginning.
So this is a great opportunity to say, I'm so sorry, Adrian.
No, he owes it to himself. It's his talent that created the thing. So stop it. Stop being deferential, for God's sake.
Well, I want
your fucking talent, idiot.
For all the people out there watching, give virtual applause to all these gentlemen. The formative years of Halloween and Bill and Ted.
Donate.
Yes.
Absolutely.
This is a perfect opportunity to take it. Go ahead and go to that tiny URL and donate for the Greater Orlando Performing Arts Relief. I want to thank you, gentlemen. Some of you will see later. So, and we'll talk to Jason. We'll see some of you later. I'm sure we'll see some of you. And Chris Leps, I don't know what you're doing, but you have like a painting in the closet that keeps you from aging because you look exactly the same.
You haven't changed, Chris. You haven't changed
Paul
an iota.
Paul Ruditis.
Thank you, guys.
So we'll see you guys later. So Jason, talk about '94. That's when you came on board. We already sort of started talking about it, but keep going about it. So you came to Universal from Disney and came on as a writer, and that's where we met, as on The Price is Right, which was a Beetlejuice sort of double dare game show.
Yeah,
I was the dancing security guard.
Yeah, the pre-show. And do you know what inspired that?
I do not.
There was a movie called My Blue Heaven with and Rick Moranis. And there's a scene where a merengue starts playing and an FBI agent just starts kind of dancing to it. And it's really a cute little scene. And when we were working on Price is Right, I'm like, oh, it might be kind of fun if like there's a security guard hanging around in the animal actors stage and in time to the music, he just sort of starts dancing a little. And that's where that came from. But Bill and Ted was my second assignment after that first round of shows. And I'll never forget, like I said, Julie's one line, okay, this is great. Now let's see what you can do with Bill and Ted. And again, it was even on the strength of the first 2 years, you know, you kind of felt the weight of it, especially as a kid. You know, you're like, well, you know what, because I was relatively inexperienced. But luckily I was partnered in '94 with one of the directors working on staff at Universal at the time, Paul Vroom. And he turned out to be an amazing partner and collaborator. And he was the first director that I got to work with.
So with that, let's bring out Paul. This is Paul Vroom. I've known Paul for a long, long time, did theater with him. In fact, he was one of the people responsible for getting me my audition with Adrian. So if he is available, looks like Paul is actually having some technical difficulties right now. So Paul was an actor there. He was part of the fire crew, which was a team of actors who basically their job was to be able to step into any show on property. So any role, any show, just about. And he was incredibly talented, talented actor. He was playing, and I met him doing A Few Good Men at a local theater where he was playing Colonel Jet. He was doing the Jack Nicholson role. Yeah. So I was basically terrified of Paul for a very long time because of that.
I was too, because Julie took me over to the Wild West Theater to meet him, and he was doing something in between shows. But you know, because he's got that intimidating look. I think we have a picture of me looking like a complete idiot, and Paul, who stepped in to the role of John McClane one night during the '95 show. But really intimidating. There we go. There's Paul Vroom, a real man with an idiot. Do you recall wearing pants quite that high? Because my wife is always saying the 90s have passed with some of my choices.
You got to hoist them up a little bit. You got to hoist them up
a little bit. But Paul was an amazing guy. Still is, actually.
Yeah, a tremendous human being. We see, obviously, we've maintained contact for that point. For that, Facebook's been wonderful. I think we've maintained it. So Paul was brought in director. You wrote. Paul directed. And with Julie still around, with kind of keeping the machine running.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much so. And, so Paul was there when we wrangled the full-size Ford Bronco and brought it out onto the set. And I'll never forget, too, when we would have the villains come in the phone booth, accompanied by Bad to the Bone. And I'll never forget when Tanya Harding, kind of strutted out and just the place went crazy. And then later on, we brought in, Paul had Nancy Kerrigan enter from the house. And that was one of the things that Paul did with the staging that was so great, was like he always had characters entering from unexpected places. So you really felt like this was kind of, this word wasn't as overutilized as it is, but it really kind of immersed the audience. He's calling me right here. Let's see if we can do this. Paul.
Hello.
Hey, I got him on the phone. Can you hear it?
Yeah, I'm not sure why I'm not able to get in. It says I'm in the messenger of Liz's room attempting to join.
Okay, yeah, that's the green room. You want to go to the StreamYard site, and that's where we are right now.
I know, but I clicked on what we have. The agenda.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey. Yeah. Give Seth a shout, because
tell him to try Chrome. Tell him to try Chrome instead of
if you're not using Chrome.
I'm on Chrome.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we will have we'll have Seth reach out to you.
And as soon as we get a hold of you, Paul, we'll get you back on. All right? Promise. Okay.
Cool. Well, then I'll just interact with you right now.
Okay. So, what was your first exposure to Bill and Ted? Was mine as well. What are your memories of that first year and mounting what would become this huge juggernaut 20 some years later?
we are live right now because I can't tell.
Yes, I have.
Oh, okay, let me turn on. Wow, first of all, a shout out. I'm disappointed that everybody else is gone because I wanted to say hi to John, to Adrian, and certainly to Jules, because Jules and Adrian and Skip Sherman, they all took a risk with me as the director. And as I'm sure you probably remember more things about it than I do, but I just remember being like, okay, this is a real opportunity for me. This is a now a property that has got some legs and got some following, and this youngster, we're going to give him a shot at doing this. So, and like Zimmerman said earlier too, man, they were fantastic about giving us leeway with what we wanted to do. There's some things I remember I think we had to fight for, but generally speaking, man, other than like budgetary stuff, they were really pretty cool about it. So it was an amazing experience. So many talented people, you included, and just a chance to learn some new skills, frankly. And the response that we got was really just kind of humbling and amazing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So-
Adrian was on screen, and so he got to hear that.
I did. Thank you, Paul. I wish you could get on. That would really be a help.
Yes, I'll connect you with Seth while
yeah.
Jay talks with Adrian a little.
Sounds good.
Okay, hold on.
So, well, and that's the thing. I mean, the original, those early years of Bill and Ted, especially, and even Universal, was a little bit. There was a certain guerrilla theater aspect about doing it.
Very
It was just
definitely so.
sort of seat of the pants, and
Yep.
kind of making it up as you go along. I mean,
Mhm.
not all the corporate and systems were in place that we kind of have built now, but at the time it was like, well, let's just try it. Let's just go for it.
Yep.
Like the Little Rascals. It's like Adrian. I remember it really was kind of like Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland. Like let's put on a show.
Yes, exactly. It was. Let's put on a show. Let's go to a barn and put on a show.
Yeah, and it literally was a barn.
Yeah.
with horses that would get spooked.
Yeah.
For all the young people out there, we're talking Adrian's terms. The Little Rascals was a show, was a movie, like these shorts from the 20s and 30s. So
Yeah.
I don't know if there's any equivalent to that now. And Mickey Rooney, so basically they're just showing their age right now. They're showing their extreme age with references that most of the people watching do not understand.
The Little Rascals was also a Universal picture in 1994. So joke's on you.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, fine.
But no, I think Paul and I had a similar experience, with Julie and Adrian really trusting us and letting us go with it.
Well, I remember, Paul, when we brought in the Wong Fu characters, Paul said to me, do you think you could help me with them? Because I don't know what to do with a drag queen. So I said, that's fine, I'll help out. So I staged the drag queens for him. Yeah.
I'll never forget, that was in 95, because 95 when we saw that we could, when we saw what we could get away with in 94.
We got away with nothing with that damn legal department. They were horrible. We had to skirt them all the time. And then sometimes we'd say, fuck them. And then we would just keep the gag in. Hi, Paul.
Paul!
He made it in. Lovely.
Hi.
Yes, you're in. You're on. You're live.
You're on. Yes, we can see you.
No, we were starting to talk about 95, Paul.
All right.
We that was when you stepped into as John McClane from Die Hard one night because somebody wasn't available or whatever.
Let's see. Was that the night that I twisted my ankle, my knee, my something or other, and ended up in another surgery?
Oh God!
That was it was interesting though because that year we called the show Bill and Ted Forever, and we took Sam Jackson and John Travolta from Pulp Fiction, and they stole the booth in order to commit heists throughout time. And I'll never forget the phone booth coming into Miserloo.
There we go.
Yeah.
The song from
That's
Pulp.
another year. That wasn't 94.
Yeah,
there it is.
95.
Yep. There's the crew.
Yeah, so you can see in the middle left.
Yep.
And Jules and,
That was the mask. That was those two characters. Man, it was mentioned earlier too that OJ moment. Just the reaction to that was unbelievable.
Yeah, it blew the roof off. And forgive me, I don't remember the gentleman's name, but it wasn't an actor. It was just somebody who looked a lot like OJ.
Correct. Yeah,
he wasn't an actor. Yeah.
Right. And that's all he had to do, man. He looked close enough, and the audience lost their mind.
I believe we actually have one of our John Travoltas waiting in the wings, who can come out and say hello.
Yeah, so I was going to say, can we bring out some of the actors? Let's bring out.
Oh my God!
Eric Miles, is back. Chris is
there
back.
they are. I just want to start off right off the bat. Paul Vroom was scary as shit. He scared the hell out of me because every night we do a show and I come up with an improv or something and he'd come over and he goes, "You know that line you just said? You think that's funny? You think that's funny?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's funny as shit. Go ahead and do it. Keep going."
Here's the thing. I remember this specifically, auditioning for the show, and Paul says to me, "You want to audition for John Travolta?" And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "What?" And then I went, "I swear to God, it's so weird. I thought I was going to die." And he goes, "Ah, you got it."
You also had like the Travolta hair back then too, but it was something.
Oh yeah, I mean that shit's all gone now.
But no,
25 years of age, man.
And
join the club.
The
Hey Paul, do you remember this though? I remember, Paul was great in directing. I mean, keeping things together. I mean, for real, seriously.
Thank you.
Yep.
But what was the coolest thing was when you did the Batman slide for life. You remember that in that show?
Oh yeah.
That was cool as hell. And it's unfortunate that this symbol has become a bad thing, but do you remember how much fun we had with that symbol?
Oh, you kidding me?
Had any negative connotations to it?
You just looked at it.
You remember that? Remember our cast picture, like half the people are doing this.
Absolutely.
I was too much of a thespian to be involved in such nonsense. I was always like, "What is that shit?" No. I was like, I am an actor.
Now I remember earlier when people were saying how they had difficulty with the stunts. The stunts were fun and easy. What I had a problem with was when I had to do the freaking Danny Terrio dance routine that we had to do at the end. That was hard.
And that's where the parody came in, because in order to get away with stuff like that, it's like you're basically, you were John Travolta. So we pulled everything we could from what is satirical, about John Travolta. And Scotty Sarich just joined us. He was the Annihilator. One of my. And
right, that's right, the Annihilator, right?
Yeah,
all the early years.
Yeah. Because of the budget cuts or something, or some kind of a commercial that never went at Universal.
Scotty had one of the greatest entrances ever, where motorcycle just came roaring into the air.
That was awesome.
Had that ramp built, and he just launched into the air and landed on the stage. Crazy.
I'd be very stressed every time that part was coming up.
I think 95 was the first
I was always stressed. The whole show I was stressed. That's it.
I think 95 was the first year that you introduced the characters, and at this point I want to say, Miss Kevin Holden.
Yes, absolutely.
Kevin Holden. God bless him. He was one of the A players. Fantastic jewels in the show. Fantastic
guy in the world too.
One of the quick stories I have real quick about that is whenever Kevin's gun jammed and he was supposed to shoot Batman, and Batman was supposed to do the fall off the roof and crash into the boards, and his gun jammed. And I just remember hearing over the mic, "Shit!" I remember looking at Chris and like, "Oh, he said shit on the mic." And then I remember we were like, "Well, how do we get Batman down?" Because that was the big finale, is to crash, into the boards. So all the heroes, Scotty and all you guys, just pointed your guns and shot Batman. And I just remember me and Chris just going, "You shot Batman!" And that was the end of the show. We moved right along. But yeah, the heroes shot Batman one night out of the thing.
But that was the year that we were the anti-heroes, though, because we weren't bad or good. We were kind of like the in-between, because we were being rooted for, but we were also kind of the bad and the good at that point. So I thought that was a really cool juxtaposition you guys threw into that. That was a really cool element.
It's funny because we mentioned Kevin Holden. It's really one of the poignant things about doing something like this is thinking about the people that aren't here anymore. Kevin Holden, Chris Lefts, and I worked with in the entertainment department at Disney, and he was an amazing Sam Jackson. And then in the subsequent 2 years, he was an amazing Will Smith for us. He was just a huge part of the fabric of Bill and Ted. And Kevin and Scotty got the dialogue exchange that brought the house down in '95 because we had Sam Jackson and Travolta standing there center stage. They're circled by the heroes. So it was the Annihilator, John McClane, and we lampooned Stallone that year. So you had this weird stunt guy in a Judge Dredd helmet and Rocky.
That's right.
Ridiculous. But to the audience, it's Bruce Willis, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, who were very well-known investors in a certain restaurant.
Right.
So Kevin Holden looks around and he goes, "Man, where are you guys from?" And Scotty just goes, "Planet Hollywood." What the Planet Hollywood. And the whole place went crazy. It was amazing.
That was fun. Planet Hollywood.
What was that like for you, Scotty? Like, did anything intimidate you back then? Like, because I'll never forget how frightening, and James mentioned it too, that motorcycle launch was.
Nothing really intimidated except for maybe Paul Vroom yelling at us because we F something up, I mean, I just hated being singled out. What the hell are you doing?
That was like,
we made him go away. We lost him.
I don't know. Or maybe Adrian backstage after the show, you really screwed the pooch on that one, didn't you?
That doesn't sound like me, but that's good. I'll buy it.
Too many rats running around.
There you go.
Stage manager at
That's
Wild
more
West.
me.
And so we got to see Paul all the time because we worked with him at Wild West, and then he was also our show director for, so it was like 24 hours of Paul. But man, it was like the inmates were running the asylum in the best possible sense because we all worked together and knew each other and loved each other. And it's funny, Scotty's motorcycle jump. James and I had a front.
I think I'm back.
James and I
You're back. You're back. Good.
James and I had a front row.
But I don't see you.
Huh? You don't see us?
We see you.
Yeah, we see.
Go ahead, Chris.
And we hear you too.
James and I had a front row seat to Scott's motorcycle entrance, and every night Scott got higher and farther, more and more.
That's true.
And by the final show on Halloween, Scott, I swear you were like Evel Knievel, man. You
went to the well. I think he was trying. I think you were trying to go to the well.
His landing, it was so
landing in the well.
He had to jump, and as soon as he hit, he had to slam on the brakes because he did not have that much runway. And like you said, he literally went to the well by Halloween, and it was awesome. I mean, some of the stuff that we pulled off in that show, again, kudos to Zimmerman.
Yeah, speaking of which, Chris, like especially as someone who's in the industry, were there things that you learned or did for the first time at Bill and Ted? Because we eventually got to the point where we expanded quite a bit on Wild West in terms of the stunts and all of the gags that we would build into it.
It's funny. What was so great about that environment and what was so great about John Zimmerman is that, we all came from a physical background, and John could get everyone up to speed. But what was special about that is you understand how the stunts worked. You never felt unsafe with John because if it was being put into place, John had tested it and done it, and it was you could put that out of your mind and just focus on your performance. And I think it's important because so many people that get into stunts have this amazing physical background, but they don't understand necessarily the mechanics, the physics behind it, and that's how a lot of injuries happen. And that was never the case at Universal with the Bill and Ted show. I mean, everything was so safe. We all had so much fun, and it was important to have that level of safety so that we could focus on the performance because that's what the audience came to see. And again, kudos to everyone because every year, that's the real challenge in the cinematic universe. It's like every sequel has to be bigger and crazier and more over the top than the last. And that was the challenge for you guys putting the show together And I feel like every year you just executed flawlessly, and the applause got more thunderous. The crowds didn't want to leave. I mean, as it got closer and closer to Halloween, there were people out there with, physically pushing people out of the arena want to leave. It was palpable. It was amazing.
Well, I think one of the things that we did was, it was so crazy, like you said, is that's why the meet and greet at the end of the show kind of started, was because we were like, goodbye. And everyone was just like, came to the front and we're like, I guess we're going to take pictures now? I don't know. And that kind of started the tradition of meet and greets, which carried on all the way to the very last show.
And you know what's funny about that is,
with Jason and Paul.
A lot of us worked in the theme parks too, like regularly. And I think that, we would do our meet and greets after each show, but there was something about that show that you didn't mind standing out there almost to the point where you had to go on to your next show. I mean, because they were so enthusiastic about what we were doing. It was just a thrill to be out there and just, get the adulation from the people and thank them for everything that, watching us and stuff. And I do want to touch on the point that Chris said earlier about stunts. We're joking around a lot and saying, how fun everything was. But I'm going to tell you, it is definitely kudos to everybody at Universal for this, that put their hand in this, because you think about it, all the weapons that we used, the falls, the jumps, there was no major injuries at all. So as much fun as we had, and how we're talking about how great everything was and how much fun, and it really was like when you would go back to the green room, everybody was laughing and it was just lighthearted. But I'll tell you, when it came to the rehearsals and going over the stunts and the timing of the stunts, it was super important that everybody was on the same page and knew exactly what was going on. And that's a testament to Universal and everybody that worked there. That,
John.
No major injuries whatsoever, ever.
No, never.
There's no, I mean, that was definitely a focus and a united front on safety first, no matter what.
So
And that was the beautiful thing about John. Yeah.
Paul, you had dropped out for a second, but I was saying that Scotty and I had the fortune of having you as our stage manager at West as well. So it was like we would do our shows at West, and then we'd be right back together again at night. And you were incredibly valuable as a stage manager, because you came from a place of authority, but you were also a friend and a pal. And what we respected about you so much is that you were already kind of a known actor within the Orlando community as it was. I mean, you were already doing TV and film. So it was cool is when and I think this again is a testament to everyone who was in the show. When Paul pulled you aside and gave you a note, it wasn't like, who are you to tell me?
Yeah.
That's a great note, Paul, and you respected it. And I feel that was what was so special about that entire community, is that everyone came from their respective backgrounds. And yeah, we're Adrian or someone, but everyone who was in those roles were there for the right reason. And it was a perfect blend and just the understanding of entertainment and what the show was about. So anyway.
That's a great segue.
I miss you, Paul. I miss you.
So that's a great segue into my question. So yeah, I mean, Paul, I met you as a quote legitimate actor, and we were doing an Aaron Sorkin piece. We were doing Aaron Sorkin, and we were doing theater.
Which, by the way, can I just jump in and say, that was one of my favorite plays ever, and is one of my better reviews, and just loved working with you guys on that.
And this is also for Adrian. How do you approach? Because one of the things we do is trying to how do you approach something like this, which is sort of it's a lot, as Jason throws a lot in there. How do you approach it to bring legitimacy to something like this? How did you approach this as a director? And this is for Adrian too.
Okay, Adrian, you want it first? You want me to go?
No, the legitimacy of the thing. The script was legitimate, and so I just followed the script. That's where I got my legitimacy from. It was in the script.
And
Jesus, you're handsome,
it always
Adrian.
starts with the script. And for me, coming from the acting background, and
the actors, the characters that you produce.
Go ahead, Paul.
So
coming from, I guess, what'd you say? What?
I said you used to be intimidating. Take the man.
I'm gonna have to start using debate rules on muting microphones if this keeps up. All right.
Okay.
I just want to point out that Tommy and Paul both have their LA Dodgers hats on, by the way.
All right. So let's take it to Paul. Go ahead, Paul. You take this.
All right.
Now,
Sorry, because forgive me if I'm choppy, because what I'm seeing and hearing from you guys is super choppy in and out. So forgive me. Yeah, I know what little I do remember. So many dead brain cells years later. What I do remember very much is going into it with the attitude of I want this to be ensemble. Adrian entrusted me. I was given a crew of people who were talented and capable. And so learning to trust them and give them the room to do what they do. And much like the same thing with the actors. And as far as, the material absolutely started with Jason and always referred back to Jason and his work and in the writing. But I'd like to think, I hope, that with you guys, at times was I hard? Sure. But I just felt like, you know what? Everything is based in truth. Comedy is based in truth. So whatever we do, whatever you're doing with the character, it has to be truthful. And from that, the comedy will come out, or the moment that we hope to achieve will arrive, if it all is based in truth.
And Paul, I wholeheartedly agree. First of all, I would just love to just talk about what a great collaborator Paul was for me, because we never had a disagreement. And if there ever was any kind of question, it was something that, we hashed out together, had a great working relationship. And I loved watching him direct, and good thing, because I was learning too. But the truth is what, and he just touched on this, is what allowed the comedy to work, because you had to treat this outrageous situation as though it were actually happening, and all these crazy personalities are interacting with each other. And it actually led to one of my favorite moments of the night. Paul had a gig of some kind, and he said, I need you to run rehearsals for this one night. And I was terrified. And I'll never forget, we were starting to block this fight scene between Bruce Willis and one of the villains from like a Mortal Kombat type thing. So it was going to be kind of the Bruce Willis brawl combined with martial arts. And I'll never forget, we had like a 45-minute discussion on the set during rehearsal about whether or not John McClane would give up his gun. Because I was coming at it like, no, John McClane's an honorable guy. Fight the guy on his own terms. And then there was a certain point where I'm looking around going, what are we doing? The Riddler's over here in a body stocking, and it's like all of this is nonsense. But it speaks to Paul's point about truth. And no matter how ridiculous the truth is, if you play it real, that's where all the fun stuff comes in, and that's what made it funny. And it's this approach to directing and molding those performances that took what was on the page and just rammed it home with the audience. Because I would watch him and he's like, no, this is serious. You're not going to play the comedy as comedy. You're playing it for real. And that's what makes comedy. The minute you telegraph to the audience that it's funny and you're kind of winking at them, then it's just dumb. So you got to play the truth.
So I'm going to ask you guys, because right now we got a bit of a sausage party going on.
Yes, absolutely. Bring out the girls. Bring out those ladies.
So
they killed it too.
Obviously, Julie had.
I want Brenda and Jamie, all those ladies.
Well, no, but I'm going to so
and Julie.
Yeah, so Julie had some tech issues. Unfortunately, we didn't get to talk to her as much as we had to plan to talk to her quite a lot about the formation of this. We also had a couple women who were supposed to be in this segment, Kelly Malik and Roxy Dixon, who unfortunately had some were not able to make it tonight. So let's just talk about. Yeah, so let's talk a little bit as so the strong presence of women, even back then. There's some kick-ass women who were part of this show. These shows as we were in these years.
Well, Roxy played Tanya Harding, and Paul.
Samantha was Nancy Kerrigan.
Yeah, and Paul, you directed that amazing. But again, you want to talk about we were way ahead of the curve in terms of wanting to have strong women out there, because every female that appeared in Bill and Ted was a badass, and all of the performers were killer. But that was an amazing fight, Paul. And of course, because it was Kerrigan and Harding, it was kind of like you got to watch the rematch at Halloween Horror Nights.
Just real quick, and tell me if my memory is failing me. Cindy Thomas, Adrian, wasn't she our choreographer?
Yeah.
So I just want to give a shout out to her because with the dance moves and all that, I mean, we haven't mentioned her name yet, and my God, she played a big part, huge part in that.
Well, the musical finale brought the house down, and I think Cheryl.
Hello. So we're speaking of kick-ass
hello.
Let's bring. We're
I'm
gonna bring
here.
in Cheryl. Let's bring in Cheryl.
Hi.
Ball. Hi.
Hello. I'm sorry I was
There's
coming out
Cheryl.
of the green room there. We're trying to wrangle crazy in the green room.
Yeah, it's like the traffic with this thing is kind of like the 405 during the Olympics and a brush fire all at the same time.
Well, with all due respect to my love of all you performers, you're not always good at following directions. says the stage manager, the eternal stage manager.
Guilty.
So that's kind of what happened. But we love you all. How's everybody doing?
Really, it's so great to see you, Cheryl, too. I mean, we were just talking about how Bill and Ted, the show in general, from the beginning, has had kind of this rich legacy of strong females. And we're jumping a little bit ahead chronologically, but Cheryl was my stage manager for my directorial debut in '96. And, I mean, you want to talk about, she was the female Paul. No one got away with anything.
That's a good analogy.
And ironically, I was thinking about this because that was all, on the outside. But if anybody who was there for '96 remembers the song that the text chose for me, which was the song that came right before Rock You, was Basket Case by Green Day. So, you can take that any way you want, but it was an honor to be with Jason on his directorial debut. It was also kind of like being a psychiatrist on the debut as well. And I say that with all the warmth and love that I can possibly relay, but it was a great ride. The whole process from start to finish was just incredible.
I can only imagine as a director, it was like going from John McTiernan, Paul or Michael Bay to Woody Allen all of a sudden.
It was interesting, but it was a learning process together too. So we were able to help each other out. So we did a lot of crazy things, and Jason overcame a lot of fears and a lot of firsts, not just directing, but also jumping off of things and climbing up into the catwalks and doing stuff that, probably would have made him cry otherwise. So.
No, it was, because John Zimmerman actually trained me on a number of things because I was eager to learn. So I got to do slides for life. And in '96, I did the Tom Cruise descent from 80 up in the rafters. That was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying.
I would not have. I was up there and I kept encouraging him, and he climbed over. And as soon as they tipped him horizontally, I was like, "Oh hell no! Good luck to you. Bye."
Well, it didn't help that the stage was like a natural gymnasium. Everywhere you looked was something fun to play with, and so. Between the directors and the performers, you poor bastards must have been like, no, you. So it's like it was literally like the ultimate goat rodeo of like. I think there was finally a memo. It said, if your stunt, if this is not in your script, in your role,
don't do it.
On the apparatus.
Yeah. Don't touch it.
Because it just got. And I don't envy you guys. It's so funny because we're all of us collectively were so much younger back then. But because you guys were in that place of authority, you seem so much older to us. But again, it just was just a crazy conglomeration of all
do you guys remember? And I just want to say real quick, do you guys remember how we'd always have to do? And I remember this specifically because I was thinking about Paul. We always had to do the show for legal. Even before we did anything else. Remember, there was of suits that sat in the back, and we always had to do the show. And I just remember you guys going up there and fighting for everything because they'd say, "Well, we might not," and you'd say, "No, we got to keep this in. You understand? If we can." But I remember that so specifically that night, having to do show for legal and having to fight for every bit that we kept in that show.
It was always that way. It was always that way. Then we had to submit the scripts to legal before we could even do the show.
By the way, if you're all keeping track, every time somebody says legal, you have to take a drink.
Yes, you do.
You know, I'm an entertainment attorney now. So
you either need to take a drink or donate.
Yeah, or donate.
Donate.
Donate. Definitely donate.
Give money.
So
Absolutely.
Cheryl, let's
just a quick second, because this is kind of like a PBS membership drive, only no one's getting a free tote bag. But just for the audience, and hopefully there is an audience, some of the people that you see on the screen, I mean, myself included, and Cheryl, you know, we've all been impacted by this. And I think this is just a great moment to say that, you know, in Orlando, regardless of what company you work for, our mantra is we work while others play. And when things aren't going so well in the world, whether it's World War II or the oil shortage of the early 70s or what's going on now, what do people turn to? They turn to entertainment, film, television, theme parks, literature, concerts, music, whatever. And unfortunately, during this particular crisis, that's the world that's being impacted the most in terms of people hurting. So I would just love to make an appeal to the audience. You know, we wanted to do this tonight to kind of, you know, it started as a private thing just for us, where we were going to get together on a Zoom call and just kind of reminisce. And the more we started talking about it, we realized that with so many Halloween Horror Nights fans in general, and Bill and Ted fans in particular, maybe some folks would be interested in hearing these stories. Well, the stories that the audience is hearing, you know, are coming from people who are hurting because of the pandemic, and that's why we partnered with Attractions Magazine and GoPar in the hope that the audience might be inspired to give a little back to all the folks that have entertained them so much over the years. Because you're looking at some crazy talented people on the screen right now, and you know, they're working while the audience plays, and you know, they need our help right now.
And so many of the people, when I reached out to them and said, hey, you know, just send me a brief bio of, like, you know, where are you now? And so many of the people that you're seeing tonight and, you know, are saying, well, I was doing this or I was doing that, because right now, you know, entertainment is being deeply impacted by this. And so that's why, you know, I mean, this is a lot of fun, but this is a chance for people out there who have loved Horror Nights, who have loved Bill and Ted, to do their part, to give back to those of us, like you said. And I'm going to also take this opportunity, you know, while we're sort of wrapping up this segment, I think it'd be nice for Cheryl to talk about, like, we see a lot of the on-screen talent, but kind of talk about, for those laymen out there, what a stage manager does, what does backstage look like at a show like this?
It's organized chaos. That's basically what it is. It's organized chaos. It's it's making sure, well, for me, we were just talking about, Chris was talking about trying to keep track of where everybody is and when and what they're doing and they're not supposed to be doing. For me in 96, I had vehicles on top of it to have to deal with. And let me tell you, wrangling that damn convertible BMW and Joe Long on my butt about the damn BMW and the motorcycle and the DeLorean. I mean, there's all that stuff that's going on in addition to the people that you're trying to figure out where they are and what they're doing. And you can't do that without a team. You know, my techs, my assistant stage manager, Kate Singleton, rest her soul. She's no longer with us as well. You know, there's a team of people that are putting all of this together. It's not just me. It's me directing the organized chaos, but it's 50 people getting everybody where they're supposed to be and loading pyro and doing all the pre-show tests and testing audio and testing microphones. I mean, it's hard to encapsulate into 30 seconds, but it takes a village. It truly takes a village, just like you see the ensemble when they're out on stage of all the performers doing their thing. You know, there's an ensemble of technicians and people behind the scenes that are doing the same. So collectively, all of us together on and off are doing our thing, and that's where that love and that theater comes across. So I'm not sure what else. There's a lot going on back there.
And
we were
you would,
talking earlier about having to clear the stage, you know, because you have to reset for the next show, and the crowd was eager to take pictures of the performers. And Cheryl would always come down from the booth going, "They got to get out of here. I have stuff I need to do."
Well, I mean, you know, there's a love. You want to let them get their time with the performers and everything. But at some point with the turnaround, you know, we've got a reload to do, and you have to, with a smile on your face, kind of say, you know, get the heck out of here. You know, and we did that pretty successfully on a regular basis. You know, you want to give them the time, and the performers the time to spend with their fans, of course. But yeah, we do have a reload and a reset.
I think it was always the pyro issue. You had to reload the pyro and to make
correct.
it safe.
I mean, that was really, that was really the biggest.
Let people know. Let the people know what the reset was. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely, and there was.
You can have people milling around for that.
Correct. And yeah, from a safety standpoint, no, they couldn't be near the fence. They couldn't be in those locations where they would want to hang out and be with the performers. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there was a line at some point that had to be drawn and to say, okay, you know, you got to go. We've got to get set. So,
well, I think this is a good chance. We mentioned them earlier, but this is, since you brought up Kate Singleton, this is a good chance for all of us out there to sort of pay our respects to, you know, to Kevin Holden, who was a mainstay of Universal, Kate Singleton, Michael Shea, who were from this era too. These are people who, you know, I mean, we don't have a great singer to come out and sing a song and put their faces on a screen, but we do want to say that. Yeah, well, and we will get to.
Tyler, I would like to mention that Sammy Singhouse recently passed away, and he was Patrick Swayze, the drag queens,
Tuan Fu.
And he just recently passed away, and he was a legend here in Orlando, and the first Broadway star I ever met, because he was in the original cast of La Cage aux Folles, and he was the sweetest man ever.
And Michael Shea, who played the Mask in '94 and the Riddler in '95, both Jim Carrey. Was very similar to Jim Carrey in many ways, because he just had a face that was practically
so much energy.
One of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. Chris and I worked with him at the Ninja Turtle show, and it just lit up any room he was in, and he was just a joy to have at Bill and Ted as well.
Well, I want to thank those folks who sort of were here for this portion. We're going to move on to the next, what we call the Surrell years. I want to thank Paul. I want to thank Adrian.
Thank you.
And
thanks, Adrian.
Thank you all.
Welcome. Thank you.
Bye, Paul. See you.
So I say bye-bye.
Yes, you say bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, Adrian. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for everything you've given me in my life, both personally and professionally. It was a joy to work for you and learn from you, and it's something I've carried with me for 26 years now, or whatever it is.
And I will second that. Thank you for saying that, Jason. I owe a lot to Adrian. Thank you.
Me as well.
We all do. We all do.
Yeah.
Segue from '95 to '96, when I got to direct for the first time, I wouldn't have been equipped for that at all if I hadn't learned from Paul the previous 2 years, and the way he conducted himself with the actors and the way he approached the material. You know, that was what enabled me to go from the Padawan learner to
You have taken the pebble from the hand. Go. Walk.
So Jason, so they come to you in '96 and they say, okay, here you've written this thing. Why don't you take the reins of this beast?
Yeah, and again, in fairness, it was because Paul relocated to Vegas to enter a new phase of his career. So there was going to be a vacuum anyway. And I just felt that, I threw my hat in the ring just mostly because directing felt like a natural outgrowth of the writing. So that was really how that came about. And I just felt that because of what I learned from Paul and Adrian, and also because, Cheryl touched on on how tight-knit we always were as a family. That's something you hear a lot from theater people, from film people. It's like you become this community that's really incredibly tight for a while, then you go away, then you come back again. That was really the only thing that gave me the confidence to do it, because I talked about how much weight I felt in '94 just having to take on the writing. now it's even worse because the show's even bigger than it was, and you're just like, oh geez, and now it's like if something goes wrong, there's really nobody. It's like if you screw it up, it's like it's you.
If I can just jump in for a second, Jace. The thing was that for as timid and uncertain as you were, there was, dead on from the time we walked into rehearsals. It was just, you were prepared. You knew what you wanted. You knew what your vision was, and you were able to relay that, whether you had done it before or not. And from being a seasoned stage manager who had 30 years already, or 25 years of stage managing already, that was pretty impressive.
She started when
correct.
She was 2, so.
Correct. But in Connecticut, I had a theater company there, and so I've been doing it for years. It was pretty, and I'm not just blowing smoke. It was pretty impressive. A first-time director who had that vision and was able to relay that vision. There's a difference between having it and being able to actually communicate it and get it through to a group of performers. So for as uncertain as you were, it was pretty amazing to watch that transformation and that execution, because you were far more ready for it than you ever believed you were.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. And I remember preparing, because I didn't really know what all went into it. So I remember coming back from a business trip to Hollywood, and on the plane, I did my blocking notes where I sketched out the Wild West stage and just kind of put everyone where I thought they would be from one moment to the next. So it was almost the equivalent of storyboarding, just so that I could arrive on set with a little bit of confidence, knowing then that as long as I had this to fall back on, we could improvise and play. Because I'll never forget one of the things, starting with 96, I would open the first night of rehearsal with looking at the actors saying, your active participation in this show isn't encouraged, it's expected. I wanted them fully invested. So the actors felt free. It felt like a safe space to improvise and try things. And sure enough, all of that stuff, if it worked, would go in the show. Because I remember you and I would talk, it's like, okay, that's going in the book. And then there's a certain point where it's no more, that's it.
Yeah, we've got a time schedule here. We have a certain amount of time for the show. Yeah.
Your booth was like Lucy's booth, psychiatric help. Funny if I said, because I always be running up there going, I don't know, what do I do? I don't know.
That's exactly true.
And as much as I learned from Paul about directing, what I learned from you was like, I'm watching all of this magic happen in the booth, because it really is this complex machine. And I kept asking you, probably like a moron, like, well, how do you know when to call something? Like, do you have to say it now if you want it to happen, a beat later? And you just, you're just like, you fall into this rhythm and you become one with your crew. And that's how a show like that runs. And I was learning as much of it from a technical perspective, and just seeing, how somebody like you, keeps your hands on the wheel for the 25 minutes, because it's really, really complex, much more so than people would think.
So what we're going to do is we're going to bring in, to keep this conversation going, but we're going to bring in another compatriot of ours. We're going to bring in Michelle Claremont. Hi, Michelle.
Claremont. I love me some Claremont.
Yeah.
Finally, some
She was my tag.
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah,
she was my number one.
It's not that they weren't invited. Kelly had a family thing.
Oh, no. I love dudes. I love dudes. I don't have a problem with dudes. Dudes are great. Hey, and now it's I'm representing.
It is Jason and I, so we're barely dudes. Jason and I are on the dude line. We're kind of
sweet vibe.
I know. I understand.
So this was one of the ladies I was talking about. We couldn't have done what we did without this one at all.
Thank you.
Love you back.
Why don't you two talk about a little bit about your experiences there? I'm going to really just step over here, get some water, and I will just, so one moment, please. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead, Michelle. I've been talking
during the show.
I mean, I just remember so vividly, and this was years, Cheryl, if you recall, before my nervous breakdown when I came to you in the green room and just about lost my mind. Totally different venue, but still. You know, I just remember, you know, not just for me, but for the entire tech team, like we would get the script and then, you know, and we were like building something as we were going. Like at that time, if you recall, we were using all of the Wild West cues, but just entirely out of order. Like, you know, the board, you were able to kind of go back and forth and do things, but the way that it was written, like you needed a punch. Okay. So you had to go find a punch, and then you had to figure out how many times you had to hit the forward button to get to the, you know, so from a technical perspective, there was a lot of like creating on, you know, as we went and sort of figuring it out. And I just remember, you know, many nights of the entire team going, and including me going, I don't know if I'm going to be able to, like, you know, stand on one leg, turn around, hit that button 7 times. Like, you know, all of the things that you would like just come up with as the technician or as the team in the booth. It wasn't like anybody was telling you or giving you a script other than the script.
We couldn't tell you. We couldn't tell you how to do it
as you went. Yeah, you were designing it as you went. And I remember it just being so terrifying, but then you just pull, like a couple nights before, you would pull it off. And like always, like the night before, you would have a horrible, you're punching and nobody's punching. And, you know, like, oh my, out of nowhere. Just like, you know, no Kirk, Captain Kirk on the stage. You're just like throwing cues out or whatever. And we always pulled it together, you know, and I remember that spirit of that just, you came in and you were creating something along with the actors, along with the director, along with, you know, the stage manager. Everybody was like pulling it together and piecing it together. And that was just an amazing time.
Well, it was a weird kind of ballet in a way, because you had actors who were on live mic combined with actors who were performing to track, just simply the number of live mics we could have, with the sound effects, with the music cues, with weapons, with pyro. And it was like a symphony that you guys were conducting up in the booth. And that's why I was like, well, if they know when to press the button, why don't they just press the button? Why do you have to?
Because it was all Frankenstein together. It was all like it was like pieced together. It wasn't in any sequence. They had to pull stuff from the West show out of sequence. And so it was Frankenstein. It was, you know, the board was, you know, trying to piecemeal stuff to make it happen.
At that time, the booth tech, there was a mechanical, and you were doing a 360 as well. So you were running sound effects on a 360.
The sound effect cues,
and trying to get 17 cues ahead, and then go back to the third cue in the show, in the West show. And then there was audio, and then they were shooting pyro, and there was, like, you know, heaven forbid one person could not have, you know, pulled all of that off. It was just this like dance.
And Michelle, somebody like if you crewed the West show during the day, did that ever conflict with muscle memory? Because like you're used to the daily operation, and now all of a sudden you got this weird thing at night where you're all over the place.
Yeah, no, I think it was like any performer that was out there. You get to a point where you know it, and you can just switch, you know, and that moment when you realize that you have it, and then it's just fun. Like once you get past that horrible rehearsal, you open the show and you're doing it, and you're having your, you know, some days you have you throw a wacky punch and nobody really cares anymore because it's open and we're doing it, and okay, don't do that again. But no, it wasn't like a major deal. But it's just like any performer that, like, once you have it and it's in you and you know what's coming and you're just doing it, and it's fun. And that's the point when we're, you know, putting pumpkins on the roof and dropping the wall, and, you know, dropping random props that don't exist in the show out of the roof.
Donuts.
You know, whatever. Getting in trouble, basically, right, Cheryl? Like getting in trouble. That's
when we hit
that point.
Some more actors from this era. So let's bring some more actors in. Again, I'm not one of them, because even though Jason, who was a dear friend of mine, was now the director, I was yet to be cast.
Oh,
I know. So let's bring in some.
But you're casting everything out.
The lovely Jamie. We got Jamie Thomas.
Hi, Jamie. Diane. Oh, these are our peeps. Hi, everybody.
Look at Alicia Scala's hair.
Yes. And Di. Oh, God. I love you guys.
For sure, Julie. Happy June, Miss Scala.
Oh, man.
better than me.
The winner.
This is awesome.
Oh my God, so many faces I haven't
Best
seen in so
now
long.
than I did when I came out of my mom.
So let's just briefly, I'll go by name and just tell me briefly what years you did and what roles you played. Jason, what years did you do and what roles did you play?
I can't remember the years, but the first 3 performances I did, I was the Crow one year, and then Men in
96.
Black.
96.
Okay, 96, 97. Okay, and then the Crow, Men in Black, and then
Zorro. The game played.
I wasn't gonna say that.
Jamie, what did you obviously?
Yeah, well, I actually dropped it in my nameplate too, but I was Agent Scully from the X-Files for 96 and then got to come back and reprise the role in 98, which was lots of fun. So
Diana, what did you do?
Oh, let's see. I was 95, I think, in 96. I was Catwoman and the Borg Queen, and then I ended up being Carrie Strug for half of one season. And what else? I was a Bond girl, and then I did some in 2000. But yeah, the 90s were the great years.
Yes.
And here's another one.
I think because we were double cast, so when I wasn't doing Scully, I would also backfill the Bond girl.
Yeah.
And Alicia, what did you do?
That damn car.
The one year I did Catwoman in Bond Girl, and then the next year I did Poison Ivy.
Nice.
Yay.
Yeah,
I love that year.
Alicia was also part of our Ninja Turtle crew. She was April O'Neil. And really, I think Alicia is one of those success stories too, because like you became a very accomplished stunt performer. After
Jason, I have to really kind of owe that to you.
I wasn't invited to the wedding, and I introduced her to her husband.
There it is. There it is.
I'm not used to seeing his face. Normally, it's like poolside. It's not just for me. I'm just saying. Normally, we don't see that.
Back off, Michelle. Back off.
Look, he puts it out there. I'm just watching Facebook for things.
I know.
All I'm saying is,
to the yard.
Relationship from turtles, and you would think the person that introduced your husband might get invited to the wedding. I'm sorry we have to do this in public in front of everyone. 30 years. Is he there? Bring him out.
Jason, I promise you, if you'll make it up to you, I will take you and your wife out.
That would be
second wife. It would have been a different one to the wedding, but if you're cool with that.
Yeah.
Maybe we can actually have one on, couple time instead of like the masses of the wedding.
She had to point out that I'm on wife number 2.
Briefly, you saw Larry Fury, who is also our Agent Mulder, David Duchovny for us. So hopefully his tech issues get fixed up and he'll be back in there. But just so you know, if he pops in, that's one of our Fox Mulders. So why don't you talk about? So now you've come in, and this thing has has really taken off. I mean, at this point, Bill and Ted is a huge thing. I mean, it is. So what was this group of performers and managers? What was your experience like coming into this thing now that is, expected to be, something that knocks people's socks off? There's an expectation, and I think Larry is coming in right now, so hopefully that'll work out.
Hey, Larry.
Hey, Larry.
Can you hear us?
We see you. You're frozen.
We can hear you.
You're frozen, Larry.
He's got stage fright.
Yeah, he's connecting, but we got lots of people, so let Jason take that one right now. Or did you want that from an actor perspective? Because from an actor perspective, it was thrilling and intimidating because doing Bill and Ted's was like the gig, I mean, that's what we all.
I wouldn't know.
Oh, poor Jay.
This is called a running gag. A running gag.
Case in point to Jay's, what Jay's saying, that it was the coveted position was to get into that Bill and Ted show. And so it was thrilling to do, and it was great. And I look at all these gorgeous faces and I realize each and every single one of you I met in 96 for the first time when I did that show. And I love that, you're still in my life today and the path that we've seen. And I just trying to listen to what was going on previously. And Adrian kind of yelled at Jason for being a little self-deprecating, so I'm going to do the same, because to Cheryl's point, you came in and you had a vision and you knew what you wanted. And then I'm also thinking back to like Cheryl and Michelle, and I really didn't even think about, like Jason attributed it to a ballet up there, of having to go back and forth with everything. But then like I was fortunate enough to be on a live mic, which was fun, but that's what I was used to. But then like Jason and Diana and Alicia were one of those that like you guys really had to work in conjunction, because you were that character, but together, because like Michelle had to line up the vocals and they had to know when to say it, or it was off and it was weird and wacky. And so just getting that whole vision of everything and bringing all of that together was just such a feat that I think so many people don't realize everything that went on behind the scenes as well. But coming in, and then you also touched on it a little bit earlier, but then the legal side of it and doing those
last minute rewrites,
employee previews, and then all the changes we had to make when they were the next day. Like, okay, so here's what we can get away with, and here's what we're still going to try to write.
We can't do.
Well, and that's why I like the perfect example with you guys is we would play up to a satirical extent just how deadpan Scully and Mulder were, combined with the sexual tension. So you really were lampooning what was going on the show, but at the same time, you're trying to play the reality of this absurd situation.
Awesome.
That's Larry, looking very still as he was on the other screen, and Christina, who is your counterpart, Christina Alvarez now, who's a nurse on the front lines actually. And
so
then
I'm gonna bring this up right now. So this is Tyler Cravens, and we're gonna pause this segment. We're gonna come back to talk about this, but I'd like to bring in, I believe Ali is here. We're gonna talk a little bit about Tyler, who was a dear friend, extremely talented actor. He appeared on on film and television all the time. Oh no, I just got a message that no, Ali won't be here. So Tyler, as I said, extremely talented, beloved out there. There we go. There's another. Beloved in the community. Actually has a restaurant. He still has a restaurant. Thai Blossom in Winter Garden, Florida. Still going strong. But he was. What was the name of that show that was on Netflix that he was on? That
Bloodline.
Bloodline. Thank you. He was in Bloodline. And we lost him again to cancer, as so many do.
Sorry, Cheryl, I had to click you. I think Ollie was trying to call in.
Yeah. So I lost him just a few years ago. But again, that's the thing, is these people who make an impact us and who will stay with us even when they are gone. So I just want to mention Tyler since this picture was up there. So let's keep going. Not to bring the room down, but yeah.
No. But one story I would love to tell about Tyler, and I'll always, obviously we mixed and matched the performers, but Jamie, I'll always, like in the picture, I'll always picture you and Tyler together. But he had one of the most amazing auditions I've ever seen in my life. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is for the gentleman who was running our creative department at the time, a man named Kyle Osier, was close friends with Miriam Margolis, the British actress. She was the voice of the cat in Babe, and she was Professor Sprout, I believe, in the Harry Potter movies. She happened to be in town visiting Kyle on one of the nights of our auditions, and she was sitting right next to me while Tyler was auditioning. And like, I was just completely riveted by his performance in the audition, because I'm not, as a director, I'm not the biggest fan of auditions, because even if you kill in the room, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be right for the part, and vice versa. But he was just riveting. And Miriam Margolis, this amazing British classically trained thespian, leans into me and she picks up my pen, and in my notebook and as she's saying it, she goes, "He is excellent." And I'm just like, I think we cast him in the room, because he just blew our doors off. And you got this amazing British actress basically telling you to hire the person.
I mean, he was friends with Bryan Cranston. He worked with Bryan Cranston on sets and stuff. And Bryan saw it too. So yeah, Tyler was the real deal, and a great guy and great heart. So
yeah. And I will thank you for bringing him to us. Earlier you spoke about. I was trying to listen in about, how do you keep the authenticity of it, and balancing, the theatricality to the comedy. And I think not only was Tyler just innately a fantastic actor and had that instinct, he also had a military background that I think helped drive his discipline as well, that a lot of people don't realize that he was actually a veteran as well. And the other thing that I think where we bonded and we agreed on, though, was that you guys spoke to this before, that comedy comes from truth. It's, even though this was very farcical, and we had to put in a lot of the satire, and even, as you said, Jason, the dancing to make sure that, we could get away with justifying what we were doing. We agreed that, like, it was all about the character. Jay, you asked that question, and Adrian answered, he goes back to the script. But for us as the actors, we go back to the character, and that's something that Jason really supported as well, was going back to the character and really driving into it. So we really weren't just playing dress up and being funny. We really dove into that, even though it was a satire, but that's what drove the comedy, was the reality, the truth, and playing that truth is what drove that comedy. And so I so appreciated what Jason brought to the table, and all of the actors as well. And I knew that whether I was going on with Larry or Tyler or whomever, I could trust that, So.
Well, with Larry's got his tech stuff worked out. So I know we're wrapping up this segment, but Larry, just tell us a little bit about your experience with the Bill and Ted show.
Well, first of all, hey everybody. Hey James. Also, Tyler, miss your brother.
Aww.
Didn't get a chance to say that earlier. I came in '96, and I felt like I was like straight up the kid show. Like, I remember seeing like Chris Leps in the Wild West show, and Scott Surge as the Terminator, and all these amazing actors. And here I was, this dude, I based that because I looked like David Duchovny's little brother. So I went into my first night just completely overwhelmed. And Jason, I don't know if you noticed, the first night of rehearsal, I got so nervous and so just anxious that I locked my knees up, and I almost passed out. So at one point in time in the rehearsal, I had to kneel down, and I was like crouching down. I remember Jason came over to me and said, "We need to stand up," and I'm like, okay. And I was just like, because I had done acting, I'd done some theater in college, I'd done a couple roles, but I was a kid that I'd spent the summer working at the Jaws ride. And so I'd seen all these actors and heard all these stories about Bill and Ted. And I was just so fortunate to get in it in '96.
And Larry's a great example of walking and looked dead on, like David Duchovny, and we were just like, oh my god. It's
Jason, I got to tell you, you gave us those little ID cards that we would pin to our suits, and Jamie had one, and I had one, and I remember afterwards somebody came to me when we were doing the read and said, "Oh look, they put your picture on." And I said, "That's not me, that's David Duchovny." And they looked closer, and they looked at me, and they were like, "Whoa."
Well, unfortunately, the years are moving forward. The time machine is picking us up. And so it's time to move on to '97. So I want to say, again, Ted, this is an opportunity while we're switching out to the new year. Go over there to donate to GoPAR for the Greater Orlando Performing Arts, because we're doing our part out there. And want to thank you all for coming, and we'll check in with you. But right now we're moving on to 1997, which was your second year as a director, correct, Jason?
Yes, yeah, and it was funny because 96 went over really, really well, and I'll never forget our project manager for that year, Wayne Gagne, who's still to this day a dear friend of mine, came to me after the first weekend and said, your show is testing higher, scoring higher than T2 3D, which had just opened that year. So that was, I remember Cheryl and I were just so relieved, that not only was it well received, and not only did we not mess it up, but that the ratings were literally higher than the highest rated attraction at the park in the daytime. So for 97, it was about keeping that momentum going.
So now, what during a year did you just sort of like kind of keep your fingers on the pulse of what was going on in pop culture and say, okay, we need to do that this year. We need to figure out a way to incorporate, whatever was, the hot thing that year.
Yeah, you would. I would approach it, and subsequently talking to Mike Aiello and Jason Horn and a bunch of the guys that followed me. You would keep your eyes and ears open, much like you would, I would imagine, if you worked at a Saturday Night Live or one of the late night shows, where you're just keeping track of things that are out there, and then also trying to figure out a way for you to lampoon them in a way that was sort of relevant, that would also fit itself into a Bill and Ted story. Because one of the things that we always tried to keep in mind was that Bill and Ted were at the center of this. So they were never incidental to the action. They were always driving the action. And it was also very important to us to be true to Bill and Ted as characters, because we took it seriously and they were the stars of the show. So they always had an agenda, they always had a goal, and they always had antagonists who were, against that goal, and the antagonists wanted something. So it was really important for us to keep that story front and center. And I think my favorite one was 97, which we called The Final Frontier. And the idea there is Diana, who played the Borg Queen for us, the idea was that the Borg and the Klingons had formed this alliance to take the time booth and assimilate all of time and space. So it was kind of them against Bill and Ted and their phone booth. And that was what allowed us to bring in also the great Dan Johnson, who's one of my favorite performers of all time.
Well, we're gonna bring in Dan just a second, but Ali's technical difficulties are coming out. So we're gonna actually give that Ali. This is your chance. I know you wanted to do a little bit of raise a glass to Tyler. I know we've talked to him a little bit, but you were one of his best friends. You were there, so I'll just
also a major fixture of the Orlando theatrical community, and one of Tyler's closest friends, and an amazing stand-up teacher and stand-up on his own right. So.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you guys for letting me come on and talk a little bit about Tyler. Tyler, it's coming up on 3 years since he passed. But I remember Tyler, I believe, was his first one Scully or Mulder?
Yeah, Mulder. Well,
Scully. He was a great Scully. He wore the dress. He had the red hair, the lipstick.
He rocked the lip.
Rocked it.
Yeah, he was.
Had the legs.
Mulder in 96 and 98.
Oh my God. Yeah. He actually dated my ex-wife, and it was weird because that's how we started talking. And I remember, my ex-wife going, yeah, that was my ex. We actually dated. And when I met him, I called my ex and I went, how did you date this guy? This guy's a jerk. And then we became like the best of friends. Tyler was such an amazing talent, so good at what he did. He took everything super serious, and that's from his military background. He was a paratrooper in the Army. He was a Green Beret. So phenomenal guy, phenomenal. His laugh is what always got me. I have a very loud donkey laugh, and so does he. And I remember going to see Urinetown starring Mr. Eric Pinder. So we decided to go do that. And of course, Tyler and I are laughing. And this very snooty couple in front, this woman just turns around and gives us the dirtiest look. And Tyler goes, I'm sorry. We just like to laugh. I'm really sorry. We'll keep it down. And the very next joke, he just goes, bah! Right in the back of her head. But that was Tyler. Tyler was awesome, an amazing talent, an amazing friend.
So you were talking about Dan Johnson and some of the other performers that year. That was our Dan was our Shatner, our William Shatner, Captain Kirk. And so let's bring on some of the. Hi, Dan Johnson, William Shatner.
Yeah, it's great that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's great that I enter the room and all the women leave. That's great.
No, we can bring
that perfectly, didn't you guys?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, Dan.
All right, thank you. We'll see you later, Ali. Thank you so much.
Take it easy, guys.
Yeah, all the women are leaving.
Yeah, all the women.
I love
Can
Ollie.
you bring
I
Alicia
love you, Ollie.
and Diana back?
By the way, how about that? You see that right there?
You have the guitar, I see.
Yeah.
It was so funny. It's like I gave him that guitar. It was a prop in the show in '97, and I gave it to him as a souvenir because it's like, when are you going to use that again? But it was like a drum in the parking lot. I'm kind of like, here, don't tell anybody.
I'm going to be buried with this thing. I love it.
But well, go ahead.
I'm going to just say we're going to just get it out of the way. Give us a little Shatner so we can just move on from it. All right, just give us a little bit of Shatner. Oh God, the glasses are coming out.
Here it comes.
I can't stop pausing in my speech.
His Dan's casting was I'll never forget how that came about, because like we knew pretty early on in the year that we were going to parody Star Trek, and Dan, you were in a show locally that was kind of a spoof, and I remember seeing
with Ollie Flores.
Oh really? Oh my gosh!
Ollie Flores played Captain Picard.
Oh my, that's amazing.
Ollie was Captain Picard with the bald cap. He didn't have this naturally bald head yet.
Right.
So he had a bald cap, and we're at Manhattan South Theater, which was run by John Peros, and it did Star Trek the musical.
Right.
That was written by Nick Ferrantello, who's great, and I think Kevin Reams directed it, who I went to UCF Theater with. Yeah, Michael Marinaccio was in it. Of the Fringe, Michael Marinaccio played Chekhov. Or his name was Pavlov,
right?
A lot of old UCF theater people were in it.
It was interesting because I saw your picture in the paper, and it was in relation to that show. And you were just sitting in the chair. You had the uniform on, and you just had that Shatner look. And that was quite a bit before the show, because I remember racing around Universal going, "There's this guy, I don't even know who it is." Like, we had this look. I saw a picture, and we did. I couldn't even tell you how we tracked you down, but when you came in and just because sometimes like in auditions people came in for very, very specific roles. Sometimes people would come in generally and we could figure out where to use them, but you very purposely came in, for Shatner. And again, the first words out of your mouth. And you, and the thing that was perilous that year was you had no back-to-back. It was you. And I remember at one point mid-run, you had like nodes or something.
I was still like, during my time off, I was working at Disney as well. So I was, I remember a few times I had some vocal problems.
But and it was mission critical, because one of the things that I'll always remember about '97 is the first night of rehearsal when we did the equivalent of a table read. The second you opened your mouth and started talking, because it was a Captain's Love, type thing that would open the show, the cast went crazy. So that was one year, I have to admit, I got my confidence early, because the minute you started talking, it worked. And second only to '94, I remember employee preview night, you blew the roof off the place. And then I felt bad for Mike Mergenthaler, who played Picard. Like, oh my God, is this going to be a thing? And then the second Merg started talking as Picard. And again, this outrageous satire of Shatner and Patrick Stewart. He got equal, and I thought, okay, we're going to be all right.
I do remember getting in trouble a few times when I went off script, and when I kept on laughing at what was going on stage in the middle of the show. I just couldn't help myself, because everything in that show just cracked me up. And there were moments where, that had those Carol Burnett moments where I just couldn't stop laughing. And stage manager was kind of like, Dan, the show's got to end. So,
Well, we're going to bring in some other actors too. We've met Alicia, but let's officially bring in Brian Scala. He's going to be coming on. There he's. Hey, Brian.
Bring
Brian.
What role did you play?
97, 98, I was Ted. 2000, I was a Super Swing. And 2001, I was Jay from Jay and Silent Bob.
So wait, there was a character named Jay in the show.
Yeah, can you believe that?
And Jason had no idea who to cast, so he cast Brian.
I was gone by then. So
Yeah, this was post Surrell. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of your experiences. I mean, obviously you got to play one of the main roles. So,
biggest thing for me was sort of like you knew you were part of something special, but sort of the legacy that was handed down. The people that came before you were very kind and gracious and generous, and even when you were doing roles that they had done in the past, James Keaton, for example, he was playing. I can't remember what he was playing. One of my first years there.
Because he won. Actually, you know what? I'm going to jump off for a second. Bring James back on because he was he was the villain in '97.
He was Krug. He was
That's
Krug.
right. That's right. It was Krug. So I'm playing Ted, and there's basically Ted. And you're like you do a first rehearsal run, and you kind of
Oh, and Isaac.
There's
Isaac. Oh man.
But you kind of like walk over to him a little sheepish, and you're like, "So, how was that? You got anything for me?" And just wonderfully gracious, at least to my face. But that the whole point of me sharing this was that it felt either everyone had an ego or no one had an ego. I can't really decide where I fell on that because it seemed just to be like this homeostasis that we all knew we were part of something special.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's
big words.
Wow.
And then, so that's my biggest takeaway. Second one is to Dan's point. I caught myself just watching the show, even though I was on stage. Like, wait, I'm next. My line, my cue. But I'm watching as a guest. What's going to come out of Dan's mouth? What's going to come out of James' mouth? What technical issue we're going to have to try to cover for? Not that there were many, but they did happen because the tech crew's amazing. But I caught myself as a guest with the best seat in the house, being on stage. And it's thanks in large part to Jason, to everyone, Adrian, all the people who have been introduced tonight, and I'd just be reiterating all that. So, but that's my biggest takeaway.
And it was interesting because, I was scared a little bit when James said, I think I'd like to do something else. I'm like, but you're Ted.
Yeah.
And the same year, Chris Leps wanted to take a break from Bill, so he wound up being Robin from a kind of goofy version of Robin from Batman. And we were lucky enough to find Brian and Dean Shull, your counterpart as Ted, and Joey Wolf as Bill, who I think we have on hand as well. And it was just such a relief because you knew that the two central roles, were going to be in good hands. And then it started to be interesting to see everyone's different interpretation of the characters because everyone's Ted was different, and yet they were all very much Ted.
And also the I know, like in '97, the Picards were because we had Murg as Picard and Tom Stearns as Picard, and there are like different ways that I reacted to both of those actors.
We were joined now by Shannon McClung, who played Ghostface from Scream, and Screamer himself, Aaron Bernard from Down. You're in Australia, right?
Oh, how you going? That's right. Yes. So it's the future.
Oh no! This is like a characters reunion too.
That's correct.
Yeah, right.
It's entirely crazy.
Bosovich is Mr. Freeze, our second Schwarzenegger parody of the run.
So, gentlemen, why don't you tell us a little? There we go. Oh, looking good, Jason. Oh, but sporting the goatee, Jason. Nicely done.
A very interesting period in my life. I was in an experimental phase.
Oh, we lost bras.
So, gentlemen, tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about your experience in your years.
Well, to me, because I was only 19 at the time, so everyone seemed like such grown-ups to me. And so coming in and I couldn't drink So we'd go to the ale house afterwards, and people would be sneaking me. That's right. I'm talking to you, Scala.
Yeah. Ears are open. I'm right here.
People would sneak me drinks, but what it did, because for my character, I was preset on the stage, so I got to see the first 2/3 of the show every night, and it just kicked up this sleeping dragon of competition that I'm like, all right, damn it, next year I'm going to do something way more than wear the screen mask and pop up and put the TNT down.
What was that like though? Because like you were literally in a crate, and you had to be preset before the audience came in too. So it's like I can't imagine what that had to be like on your body.
Yeah, there was a lot of self-reflection that went on, and because I can't remember the load-in time. It was like 20 minutes or 15 minutes. But on the nights where we were really kind of turning them around, I brought a cooler. So it was like watching a show. It was my own personal dinner show every night, and the only kind of dangerous part was Scott Sarridge, when he was playing the Terminator and he had a weapon, he was firing right above my head. So the incredibly hot brass would hit me in the lap a couple of times. And again, he was such a grown-up. I was like, hey, Scott, can you maybe take a few steps that way so I don't get burned?
I had no idea. No idea.
I remember that.
That was a dues paying role, but it was again, it stoked this competition in me. And then afterwards I went on to play a principal role in a few of the shows after that. And, being in Bill and Ted, that's the closest to a non-musician getting to be a rock star you're ever going to be. I mean, you feel that energy from the crowd. You hear, the roars of laughter and applause. So, I can't thank Jason enough for, introducing me to that world.
And Brian, that's you and Joey got to experience that firsthand, because you would actually have to hold your introductions, kind of like on a sitcom where Henry Winkler would walk in and he can't start his line until
what's up, dude?
I was a modern day Arthur Fonzarelli.
What was that like, Joey and Brian? Like, because you would make the crowd would go crazy when you were pressed up against the glass of the phone. But then it's almost like it was like the coronavirus. It came in waves. It's like that was one big thing of applause. Then you would come out and then that would get applause. And then you would introduce yourself and then that would get applause, and you had to like time it right.
Oh yeah. That was always an issue.
What was that like for you, Joey, coming in? Because again, Brian touched on it a little bit. Like, oh my gosh, I'm acting opposite, the Ted, James Keaton, and you're acting opposite Chris Lutz in this case. And obviously, we had our B cast as well. You were mixing and matching, but you guys really took the show into a new era in a way, because you really came on strong and established yourselves in those roles.
Oh, was that for me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, he's basically how do you come into something like this with with all this stuff pre-established with these other icons of the event, and then put your own stamp on it?
Well, I literally came into Universal that same year. I was 15, and you could work in Florida in 15. So I was auditioning. I was at Herkinzina. If you guys remember that, Herkinzina, Wizards of the Screen.
I had no idea 15 though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. Everyone called me college boy, and I went with it because I was like, sure, I'll be older.
We Gifford ran the.
But I auditioned from. Actually, it's the same like with John Gallagher. I auditioned and I went in as Ted, and I went in the last day. And because people at the Herkinzina were like, "Hey, you should do this this Bill and Ted thing," and I was like, "What's that?" Because I didn't know. I knew nothing about any of this stuff. And so last day, I was the last audition too. And you and Michael looked at each other and were like, "Can you read for Bill?" And I'm like, "Sure, I guess." And then there it was. Yeah. And no, it was amazing. It's like, so I literally had no idea about any of this history or any of this stuff. I came in fresh, as though this was like some amazing new kind of thing I was doing. I didn't realize it was like such a following or anything like that. It was quite daunting, but I think that's probably what didn't make it so daunting for me because I didn't realize what I was stepping into. I just went in to do the work.
Well, we're going to pause for 1 second. We're going to say thank you to Brian. We're going to say thank you to Don, to Dan. Let's just say hi to some new folks. Will has joined us. And Aaron hasn't really had a chance to kind of get himself in there. And Gina is here as well. So tell us what your roles were. We'll start with Will. What roles were you?
For the 1997 show, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Of course, checked. I was the stage manager.
Okay.
And it was one of the best shows I've ever stage managed in my entire life was the 97 show. Because of Jason. Yeah. Because of Jason's brilliant writing and all the actors that we had put together. One of the stories I would like to say is on the first day of rehearsal, we did the read-through, and Dan, you're on here still, right?
No, he had to duck out. We brought in some new folks. So, but
because the first part of the script was all between Kirk and Picard, and Dan brought a level of his acting because he was totally in character, and there was a wave that I saw through all of the performers that were sitting in the Wild West venue on the beaches, and they all went, "Oh, we got to come up to this level," because that script, Jason, you know that script was like going. They just went. Every single performer went up to Dan's level, and that was what made that show so great. Along with all the other things that occurred in it too. So, but that is one of my memories. The other thing, and I don't think we've mentioned, this hasn't been mentioned yet on any of the thing, is the things that would always happen on the last Bill and Ted show. Where it kind of futz around a little bit.
Yeah, that became a unto itself.
My favorite story about that was during the 97 show. It was the little Woody Woodpecker that the pyro team constantly put around the stage. And Tanya Nichols, who was the pyro lead, would say, "You have to figure out where the Woody Woodpecker is." And I went, so it was a challenge. So I'm sitting there calling the show, and I'm like going, "Where's the Woody Woodpecker? Where's the Woody Woodpecker?"
So hey, Aaron, why don't you talk? You've been here for a while, but you really haven't had a chance to. So
that's
in
all
there. Please, tell us a little bit.
Already.
Yeah, well, it's always 97 up here. Yeah. So no, I arrived in Orlando in '96 late to not make the audition for Bill and Ted in '96, but I saw the show and I said, "Oh, I got to get in there." In '97, and I auditioned for that. I split myself in half and did half Jerry Seinfeld and half Kramer on the other side, and yeah, it was it sort of changed the trajectory of my entire life, quite frankly. So kudos to Bill and Ted and Jason Surrell, of course, for making it all happen. But yeah, it was a great time. And to be quite frankly with you, it was like, well, there's nothing else to do in the theme park now. I'm done. And I did one more year, and that was it. That was the pinnacle. To me, the pinnacle was you get in Bill and Ted. That's the top of the chain. You can't go any higher than that. But we had a great cast. It was unbelievable. I remember every line from that show, and I don't get to play that often now. I'm in Australia in the future here. So if you are playing the Powerball, I have the numbers for you. Just, I'll text you later. But yeah, so it's quite frankly, they changed everything. Like Dan Johnson and Scala said, we did characters and did a bunch of things from that. And, when I got to Australia, I was doing Kramer around, and there was actually it's still a big show here because we're a bit behind the times. And there was even a Kramer lookalike contest and all this kind of stuff. So, I did it and did those things, and instead of just being some asshole that does Kramer, I said, well, there's actually a story to that. I was paid to do Kramer at one point in time, so that's been with me ever since. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, Gina, why don't you pop in here real quickly?
Let's get a lane.
Hi, guys. My camera is like on the ceiling. I couldn't figure out how to get it lower. Just ignore that. No, it was okay. So I had been performing from the time I was 5 until I retired when I was 38. But the only good thing I could ever super, super positively say that I could do even before Jason cast me was that I could play Elaine like, I can do it. Nobody can do it besides Julie Louis Dreyfus. I could play Elaine right next to her, right? That's kind of crazy. But I love the character so much. And I just lived that character all the time from the time I was in high school. I wasn't even allowed to watch the show, but I snuck and I watched it. There, see, look it. And I'll never forget when I walked into the room. And I honestly, I can't remember the exact audition that I did. I just know that I had the pictures of me as Elaine. And I don't remember. I don't know if Jason, did I walk in with all the toilet paper?
You had you dressed like her, but what it was, you and Aaron both got the part the second you walked in. One thing I would say about Aaron was, like, he looked visibly a little young, but he so nailed the audition, and he not only nailed Kramer, but his Seinfeld was spot on. So we're like, oh, we're done. Same thing with you. You walked in dressed like the character, the hair, as only Elaine could have that mid-90s haircut, and you had a water bottle, like an Evian bottle, that you were drinking, and you were Elaine. And you were one of the few people where we just said, we're done. Yeah,
she committed to that thing.
Jason, when I walked in,
what?
hadn't even said anything. You go, holy, and then you said the bad word after that.
Yes, I have been known to say some bad words.
You know, Adrian was here earlier and was saying anything he wanted. So I think we can handle. I think we can handle shit. I think we can handle.
I know. I'm just trying.
I'm glad we weren't on with Adrian.
But I'll just, like, Jason, I'll never forget that, because I thought, okay, he's got to like it or he's got to hate it.
That is our. We're running a little long. We're running a little long. I don't know if you noticed. Let's just real quick check in with Jeff and Merg, Mike Mergenthaler. Why don't you quickly give us a little breakdown of your time, and then we're going to move on to the ending. Okay.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Mr. Freeze.
Mr. Freeze. Like you said, the two Terminators, the two Arnolds for that year, and that was the stunt fighting. That was, usually you have this like hitting meat, and for us, because he's a Terminator and he's metal, and I'm Mr. Freeze, and I was just all metal. It was just tink, and then tink. It was like this no pipe being hit against another, hilarious, and couldn't win. Neither one of us could beat each other up. It's like, I come out of the thing and I'm like, hey, Freeze, and he's like, cool. It's just like, Freeze, what are you talking? Shut up, stand still. It was a great moment. I mean, just the interaction between the two Arnolds was pretty funny for me, at least, because I'm a huge Arnold fan. And I just, I opened the Terminator show. Mike Mergenthaler, my stage manager there. So coming in, it was like everyone's been saying, it was like a rite of passage. You had to do Bill and Ted. That was the thing to do. And of course, I went on auditioned, and they put up these audition notice for lookalikes, and Schwarzenegger was one of them. And I didn't know there was going to be two of them. You kind of had a guess because it just came out, whatever. But in the show itself,
well, you mentioned Mike
Jason gave us
Mergenthaler.
So much leeway.
So let's jump on to Merg. Why don't you talk to us for a little bit? I know you're, obviously I see you all the time, but how you doing?
I tell you, I just wanted to give a shout out to you guys. I miss everyone so much. It's so great to see their faces. Some of them are timeless. Like you see, Chris hasn't aged a day. Our lady stunt women and actresses, they haven't aged a day. It's just so good. And there's just so much talent. And it's just really great to think back to that. I loved getting a chance to be a part of the show, from even starting from the Deacon. I loved just with the entrance. I always tried to flick that cigarette right at James Keaton because I knew he would mess with me throughout the rest of the night. So, and then shooting at the rafters. I remember that last show, when I fired at the rafters, they dropped a smoking chicken from the ceiling. And of course, James didn't miss a beat and kicked it right at me. So, and then doing Picard, working with our counterpart Dan Johnson. I mean, it just was so much fun. And I do have to give a shout out to Tom Stearns, the other Picard as well, who we had such a good time with. It was a lot of fun, and and then later on doing Darth Maul, which is great, and the fight scenes. Going back to Mark Jamaica, if you remember Mark Jamaica, who was our from Waterworld, he was our Kevin Costner character, and our fight was quite long for that fight, and he even let me throw Fi-Bar in his mouth. And if that Fi-Bar is that wooden stuff that looks like mulch on the thing there, it would, but nobody told you that the horse was actually peed on that stuff, and I shoved it in his mouth. So he was fine with that because it was all for the show. So it all worked out well. And speaking of well, you know, that's the year I took the axe handle and went down the well as well. So it's all part of the West piece. So big shout out to all the technicians, all the props masters, Dave Hyde, Jim Sleeth, the gun wranglers, and most of all the costumers. Oh my gosh, the costumes they did were fantastic. I found that I can't remember, Jason, if you gave me a note that you loved the fact that, look at those costumes, amazing. Brenda is Ripley. And I kept having to tug my uniform back down. Everybody, you can see the uniform we're wearing. I had to tug my uniform back down. You're saying, hey, that's great that you're doing it just like Patrick Stewart. I'm like, what are you talking about? I guess because of that costume, you kind of just had to pull it down. Yeah. So they had made it exactly like the one from the series. So I just instinctively just had to do that. So they had the costume changes, just constant costume changes and running in and out. There was just such beautiful people backstage, beautiful people front stage. Absolutely love it. And I love you guys and miss you all.
We love you too. We're going to move on to 1998. Time is moving forward. This is where we're stopping for now. Maybe we'll try to form another reunion and cover the next segment. But I think this is where we're a little over time, but not too bad. So let's bring in some folks. We got Eddie. We've got Chris Leps back. We got James Keaton back. Keaton.
Crazy motherfucker.
There's Dean. Let's bring in Dean Scholl. Dean Scholl, an old friend of mine from the Great Movie Ride days. And now
what's up, Chris?
What's up?
Hey, guys. That's awesome.
So I'm going to actually, while you guys are here, I'm going to talk to, since you three have played, what is it like creating, like, it's the Bill and Ted show, and you're either playing Bill or Ted. And what do you feel towards a responsibility towards that, since your name is on the show?
Like I said earlier, you pretty much were responsible to cover for anything. That's why even like Scala was saying, you kind of are just there to make sure and cover everything, and you're the driver of the show. And it was a kind of a responsibility, and I guess we tried to play as close to Bill and Ted as we could, and they weren't stoners. And you had to make them a little bit bigger than they were because you know their humor is just so like kind of out there. Like as far as Joan of Arc, that's Noah's wife. It's not really like boom boom. So I would start adding the to be like, hey audience, this is the laugh. It's like this is where the joke is. That'd just be a smidge. Just had to be a little bit bigger than Bill and Ted is in the movie. That was my take.
So Dean, talk to us a little bit about your experience, and we'll move around the circle as we go. So Dean, tell us a little bit about your.
Well, I knew Jay Becker before I knew anyone working over at Disney. We worked at a wonderful place to grow up called the Great Movie Ride. And I think people there used to make fun of me because I would often say, dude.
You did say
yeah,
you did.
Yeah. I think Jay probably made fun of me. And then at some point, I heard about this audition. I just remember I've only done a handful of auditions at the time. So I remember like meditating, trying to get into Keanu's space, and going in there and meeting Jason and just the whole panel of everyone was so cool. And what a great experience that they provide for anyone. It's a dream come true to like be an instant rock star and, you know, allow me to fight Darth Vader and you know, you get custom Wild Stallions guitars and you get to kick stuff and stuff blows up. And honestly, the whole rest of my career has kind of like come from Jason and all you guys that helped put the show together. And it's great to see all the faces and have the band back together.
Well, you know, and the funny thing is, of all the people out there, like Dean kind of has a Keanu vibe about him anyway. He is kind of like, I mean, he's very, so he's sort of just was like, I would say, no, you should be doing Bill and Ted, you know, you should be doing the Bill and Ted show because he always, I mean, you can hear him now. That's who Dean is. He's that guy.
You walk in and you're like, oh, that's it.
So, Eddie, why don't you pop on here and tell us a little bit about?
Yeah, it was my one run, and just an unbelievable experience, because I had just started at Universal just I think a few years earlier, and was working with Keaton at the Beetlejuice show, and got cross-trained at Wild West, and so to be a part of this Bill and Ted's, having seen it for years beforehand, again, it's just an honor and a privilege. And Jason, just seeing the show evolve and the script writing, I mean, it was just one of those experiences. In fact, while I was watching the rest of the show earlier, leading up to it, I went back and looked at the old '98 show and just reminiscing, and seeing you, Holland, forgetting all about the Monica Lewinsky thing. I was dying. And the dance show at the end. And I mean, just unbelievable experience, and just privileged to have been able to be a part of it. So thank you very much.
No, you were great, and you have one of the all-time great improvs, because you played Mel Gibson, and you were playing this guy, kind of before Mel Gibson became unhinged in real life. You got that anarchic spirit. But there was this one point where you did that bit where he knocks his shoulders back into place and seamlessly worked it into this.
I do remember trying to get that in there, and it did work. So I think I went up to the hitching post and smacked my shoulder back.
Yeah. Mr. President, welcome.
Holland Hayes, ladies and gentlemen.
Holland.
You want to talk about trial by fire? This was one instance where we did employee preview night, and there was no mention of Clinton and Lewinsky. And the Universal execs came to us and said, how could you guys, you're the Bill and Ted show, how can you not touch on Clinton and Lewinsky? And by that point, I got to the point where I'm like, we're above that. Like we're doing Ibsen, in the Wild West Theater. So it basically came down from on high. This show opened, that was a Wednesday. And they said, the show opens on Friday, and Bill and Monica will be in it. So the girl here, I do not remember her name, because I'm old and decaying before your eyes, but we had heard she worked in guest relations and was a ringer for Monica Lewinsky, and Holland was and is, a pillar of the Orlando theater community. So literally within 48 hours, we wrote the Clinton and Lewinsky bit that culminated in them singing "You're the One That I Want" from Greece to each other. But it was most infamous for, Monica came out and had the stain on the dress. The infamous
one night?
The stain stayed, but it was extreme for one night or one weekend. And then we got into this big debate over how physically correct a stain like that would or should. So what was it like for you, Holland, to step in literally within 48 hours to bring the house down?
You're muted, Holland. You're muted.
There we go. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
So, Jay, I love you with long hair. I just wanted to say that. And,
thanks, pal.
And Jason, beautiful head.
Oh, I had a nickel.
So what I remember just was like somebody said, it was like the closest thing, Shannon, I think, said it's the closest thing you could do to being a rock star. When I came out, like everybody, the roof blew off the place. And one night somebody said something like, we hate you, or boo, or something. And I said, shut up, Corey. And it brought down the house. So it was so awesome to have that freedom. And I did it almost every show after that. And then Larry reminded me, some girl shouted out, "I love you." And I said, "See me after the show." Roy, my audition with Roy Allen came up to the trailer at makeup and said, "Can you do a Clinton?" And I said, I'm thinking, what are you, crazy? I never even tried, And so I said, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman." And I got the gig. So
nice.
It was awesome.
It's funny how those presidential indiscretions almost seem quaint now.
Yeah.
Oh, seriously, yeah. The world has changed. That was a big scandal, and now we have one of those every 3 days. So,
Hey Jay, I wanted to jump in. I'm actually a little bit out of 7, and I'm happy to let someone else take my spot. But I just wanted to go out by saying, I don't know, by this time James Keaton, I don't know if he had said it, probably him, but he said, I don't think I'm going to do Ted this year. I want to do something else. And when I heard that, I instantly thought, well, I don't want Bill if you're not Ted. And so I had spoken to Jason and said, if there's anything other than Bill, I'd love to do the show still. Obviously, I would still do Bill. I just love the show so much. He said, actually, we're going to have Batman and Robin this year. So I auditioned for Robin and I got it. And I'm going to try and get through the story without being emotional. Jason had come to us and said, hey, do you guys want to do Bill and Ted for one show this year? Because we had kind of been known as the Bill and Ted. And of course, James and I jumped at the chance. And we got to do one show as Bill and Ted. And we knew the show just because of all the rehearsal process by observation. We knew the blocking, we knew the lines, we knew where all the moments were. And I've been so blessed to be in a number of more television episodes than I can recall, a ton of feature films. But to this day, as a performer, I'm so proud of that show, and it means the world to me that I got to do that one more time with James. And like everyone has said tonight so eloquently, it was the closest I'll ever be to becoming a rock star, because we literally brought down the house and we fed off that energy. And I'm overwhelmed with gratitude, respect, and love for everyone I've seen here tonight. We've lost touch and we're all dealing with our own stuff, but I think of you all more than you know. And I'm just so honored and grateful. And I love you all. And this has been one of the most amazing chapters in my life and career. So thank you so much.
Rock on, brother.
Well, thank you.
That means the world, because Chris and James, not that the rest of you I don't love, but like Chris have stayed in touch. No, what I mean is you're a regular part of my life, is what I mean. I neglected to cast Jay Becker in my life as well as the show. So
and I'd rather be there than in a show with you, honestly.
But what Chris is talking about also speaks to the family component of the whole thing, because it really became a unit. And the night he's talking about was in '97, where he took a break from Robin and James took a break from Krug and went back into their original roles. And I believe I have that show on video. And like I was in the house, because one thing is, like, as the director, certainly as the writer, but also as the director, once it's up, I don't need to be there. But as a writer, and especially as a director, I was there every night of the run for every performance, simply because of what everyone has touched on tonight. The family component and the fact that nothing could replicate that sound, that energy. And Chris, we were talking on the phone the other day, you were talking about Halloween in general, how the event had a personality and the energy extended to I-4, and Halloween has a smell and a sound, and it's just, but nothing could compare to.
It was amazing. And I remember I wasn't able to be in the show in '98, but I saw you guys in '98, and I had a grin from ear to ear the entire time, because the casting had remained just as bang on as it had been almost a decade before. Everyone was so dialed in. The writing was so witty and fun and fantastic. I mean, it was something special. And I think, of course, everyone thinks this of their own show or attraction, but I mean, Ted, from what I understand, I mean, it was a crowd favorite at Halloween Horror Nights. Everyone, they were there to see this or that, but people were visibly angry if they could not get in to see a show. And I mean, I remember hearing about fights outside because we couldn't. I mean, we were already packed as it was, and people couldn't get in to see the show. Maybe it had something to do with the alcohol that was served in the park, but still, it was a crowd favorite. I mean, it was the thing to see.
But also we had fewer shows too. So little by little each year we would add more shows just because of what you're saying. And of course, and I think that same energy that we're talking about carried on all the way up to PJ and Jason's final show, which was another freaking phenomenal blowout for a 25-year history of that show. So we were like the little beginning guys, but that tradition carried on with all the other casts through the 2000s. And I'm sure they'll tell you the same exact stories that we're telling you about how we feel like a rock star, how we felt like it was a family. And I bet they'll tell you that after you finish a season, like November 1st or 2nd, you would get depressed because you're like, there's no more Bill and Ted. And so every year was always sort of a month of depression because you're like, oh, it's all over now. And we go back to our normal gig. And I'm sure that same exact feeling happened to every single cast member of Bill and Ted throughout all the years.
So I'm going to just take a moment to talk to the people out there because, you know, I mean, I think sometimes people think, oh, you just put on funny costumes and, you know, you pretend. And kind of that is what, you know, people in the arts do, but we really take what we do seriously. And when we can't do it, like right now, we cannot do what we love, which is to perform, to entertain, to use Shakespeare's term, to hold the mirror up to nature. And so that's why we're here. And I'm going to just make this kind of a final push, kind of piggybacking what Chris says, is that if you liked what you saw, if you were part of this, if Bill and Ted was such an important part of your life, or HHN, this is a chance. I know it's rough out there for everyone, but if you could go to tinyurl.com and just take a moment to think about how much the arts mean in your life, performance. Think about what you turned to when this all started to go down, and just take a moment. Don't forget, we givegopar.com, wepartyon.com. I want to thank everybody who was part of this tonight. I know it was wild and woolly, but I thank each and every one of you. I want to thank the actors for being a part of this, for coming on out here. And we're going to take a second with Jason, and then, but I do just want to take that chance to just say, if anybody out there has can spare a few extra dollars for the actors out there and the performers and the stage managers and the sound designers, I think that we appreciate it. I'm glad that we could take this chance for you to relive some memories and do it. So, Jason, how do you feel looking back at your formative part of your career?
I really miss everybody, and even though I did get to perform twice. I got to stand in for the cigarette smoking man in '96 for the X-Files, and then much more typecast in '97. I got to go in as George from Seinfeld, which was Seinfeld's such a huge part of my life and a huge influence on me. So to get to experience that rock star quality as a portly balding man was amazing. But it's also true as a creative person, as a writer director, because I've done a lot of other things. But to this day, nothing can match the energy in the Wild West Theater during a Bill and Ted performance, and that just got bigger after we all finished our runs and continued on through the subsequent generations, which I hope will also be celebrated. We chose to do this as kind of a nostalgic thing for us during a difficult time. But the show had different eras, different creative people behind it, different performers, and it just got bigger and bigger and more beloved. And that all traces back to Julie Zimmerman and her inspiration to bring these two dudes from San Dimas, into the theme park realm, and folks like Adrian LePeltier, who launched the first show and mentored me, and Paul Vroom, and it's just a wonderful period of my life that I will always treasure. But more than anything, I'll treasure the people, which is why tonight was such a thrill for us, and hopefully some of the stories were fun for everyone. But it was great to see everybody.
Well, and Jason, you're very self-deprecating a lot. I mean, I know, but honestly, you're one of the most talented people I know, with a great heart that has shown in all your work. And frankly, that stuff that you talk about being passed to you, you have passed on to many, many other people out there, myself included. So all joking aside, we have been blessed to have you around and to have you as a leader among us. And I know times are also tough for you. So, but we're all in this together, and we love you, and I love everybody out there, all the actors and performers and managers. And so I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for putting this together. I want to thank thank Seth Kuberski out there, who's been our death, who's been keeping this thing running, and Attractions, and of course Attractions Magazine, for taking what was basically going to be just sort of a chance for us to catch up and turn it into something that, for people who've loved this for so long, and maybe even do some good out there for the community of Central Florida. So that's all I wanted to say, and I want to thank. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah. What's up? I
dude.
thought. Yeah. No. What?
I'm here to party. Let's party on, dude.
Yeah, but
where is
Ted,
everybody?
Ted.
Yeah.
What do you mean? Where is everybody?
I'm here for the party.
Yeah.
That's what this is about, right? Where'd everybody go? Am I late?
No. I think actually, your time machine's a bit off, because I think you're a bit early. You were actually scheduled for 2045, so you're about 25 years too early. So I hope you have a good guy there, because I'm probably dead by that point. And just please tell me if you could get a message back that the orange guy is still not president, because he's been threatening to do that. So I'm hoping that that's the case.
I mean, we'll see.
All right.
I'm
Hey,
ticking.
come on, give it to me. Wild Stallions. Party! Excellent. Hey, everybody, we love you very much. Take care. All the best to you. Thank you so much. Don't forget, check it out. Remember, party on, dude, when you put it in the notes. We love you. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much. We'll let you know if this happens again. Good night, everybody.